stay hydrated. I find when I am dehydrated, it does something to the energy, and it happens so
Mhm,
quick when, especially when one
mhm,
is speaking, like it'll just
mhm.
like, I don't know, just happen. And then I take a few sips of water. I'm like, oh, I'm back.
Oh, it's
You
hard.
know?
Well, I started doing marathon running a couple years ago, and I'm 47, so I started when I was 44, and that just dramatically changed my whole body
Oh yeah.
and also my whole life because now
Mm.
I'm gonna run 30 miles for the fun of it, which is kind of insane. And I get dehydrated more in the past few years than I ever did before, even on days that I don't run. Um, it is really interesting. Also, like it makes my mood like not that I'm a melancholy person or I get depressed or anything, but I just notice like this physical thing just always keeps me really up and high.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not an athlete, and I never ran or did any sports in school or whatever. But it was really interesting taking that up in my 40s,
Mm.
becoming an athlete. It's like, wow, there's things I just don't understand about my body that suddenly I do.
Yeah, man. I don't think we're meant to be stagnant. You know, we're
Oh,
meant to be in motion. I mean, you don't have to run 30 miles a
yeah.
day.
Well, I sit in an office all day
Yeah.
and I just sit there 8 hours,
Hmm.
and behind a computer screen. And that's not normal.
No, that's definitely not natural.
There's nothing normal about what we do.
No, it's so unnatural, right? Like our lifestyle
Yeah,
that we've built up in the modern
yeah,
era is just so disconnected from our just natural state of being, our humanness, right? It's very
uh,
almost robotic.
and speaking of robotic, what do we do when we get home from work? If I don't know what you do for work, but I work in a law office, so I'm in front of this computer, and I get home and I turn on the TV,
Yeah, exactly.
or I get on get on the computer, or I get on my phone, and that is like it's like taking that bad habit and just continuing it for another X amount of
Yeah.
hours until I go to bed. So
Yeah.
there are days that I come home and I'm like, no, I am not getting my computer out. I may or may not watch TV, but it might be background noise where I'm reading a book. I'm just like, I don't want to. Up until about 2 months ago, I didn't even have Facebook on my home computer. So on the weekend, I wouldn't look at it,
Hmm.
just to make
Hmm.
sure I had a little separation. Because
Yeah.
society is not normal on how we function.
No.
This is not normal.
So bad, to say the least.
I don't have a better
Yeah.
word for it.
Yeah. This is not normal, whatever normal is.
And we're draining ourselves, and we don't even know it.
Yeah. I like to
Ment-
say, what were you gonna say?
no, I
Mentally?
was going to say mentally and physically, we're
Yeah.
draining ourselves. Yeah.
Literally, I think the technology is using us in a way, or we're letting
Hmm.
it use us. Like it's taking over our brains, it's taking over our lifestyle, and we don't even know that we're doing it most times. It's just like this unconscious process that's involved with utilizing the technology, and it's like it's almost parasitical, right?
Autopilot, even.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do you think of AI?
That's a that's a big question. I don't know. Where do we start on that? What do I
Well,
think
I
of
mean,
AI?
I had a coworker literally say the other day to a client, he goes, "Yeah, sometimes I have AI write a letter for me to send to a client."
Yeah. It's the way of the world.
And I'm thinking to myself, you're a lawyer and get paid how much? And you're having a computer write a letter that you've written 100 times for you?
Uh-huh.
It's like, you're not that busy. You can take 2 minutes to do this. And we're using AI so much. Like, I don't know about you, but how do we function now without GPS on our phones? Just to go
We
like a
don't.
mile away. Yeah, when I grew up, I didn't have GPS. I didn't have a mobile phone. It's like I have to print out something from the internet. Maybe, maybe not.
Hmm.
Now I can't go a mile. I'm like, oh my God, where am I? Am I lost?
Hmm.
We kind of letting our brains shut down, you know?
Yeah.
The the
Like
threat the threat from AI isn't AI, it's that we're letting AI think for us. We're the
hmm
threat.
Yeah. And I think it's already, yeah, exactly. And I think it's already too late, man. At this point, it's like already taken over, and all we got to do is establish good habits. Like you mentioned before, like
Um,
you have good rituals around it. I think that's what we have to do is because it's if you were to completely discount it and throw away your phone, throw away a computer, throw away all the technology that's been granted to us within the last 20 years,
Mm.
be a freak in a way. You'd be like, what do you, and you'd be doing yourself a disservice. So
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
because there's good and bad to it. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not all bad. It's not all good. There's somewhere in the
Mm.
middle how you can use this technology, like we're doing now, hopefully.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. And you see my bass behind me. I'm a musician, and I know you have done stuff. And I actually kind of like AI. It can help you do some music stuff. It can create like great beats.
Yeah.
I was listening to there's a new Kanye West album out, and I was just listening to it this morning,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, those are interesting beats. Or actually, no, they're not. And so you can do stuff with AI that's actually in your favor. Or
Yep.
shoot, the guitar pedals that we use, and I have pedals for my bass. I'm like, I can make 100 sounds from this thing that I've spent $600 for that 50 years ago they couldn't do.
Oh yeah.
So that's like, oh my God. So the technology is good and bad. It depends how we use it.
Yep.
I'm a writer also, and I was actually using AI to help me drive some ideas for an outline for something a story I was thinking about.
Hmm.
And so I would feed in some AI into AI, chat GPT. I would feed in like this character and this character. What are potential scenes that could happen here? And it gave me like
Yeah.
20 things. I'm like, oh, okay, like 10 of those are cool. Let me expand those out and see if there's something I want to run with.
Hmm.
And then by the time I kind of was running with them, I was like, they became my own. And actually, that thing I was writing, I'm not interested in, but I stole one of the ideas and put it into something else that I'm kind of drafting. So it's now completely mine. But AI was really great, just kind of get the juices going from ideas that maybe I wouldn't come up given my surroundings,
Yeah.
because my brain is focused on certain things.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
you know.
Yeah, man. It ultimately makes the whole creative process more efficient, I
Yeah.
feel. It's very timely, very, very just
Mm.
time. What's the opposite of time consuming? I don't, you know, what
Time
what would
wasting.
take us, oh, the opposite of time
Oh,
consuming. Like
oh,
what would take you, say, an hour to make, using
that,
AI will
yeah,
take you 10 minutes.
yeah,
That's the point I'm trying to make. It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
it's I see it in its highest form as a technology, maybe even a life form, you could say, that serves us. It's a great service to
Mm.
us so that we can utilize our creative capacities even better. And that's the most idealistic form of AI. There's definitely a darker road that it could go down, but I see it just, if it's all good, if it's all for us, it's a servant to us, essentially.
The Terminator agrees with you that it's a life form.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we're slowly heading, man. I feel as though we are slowly heading into Skynet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. People always talk about how we're headed into something like some dystopian future. You've seen it. You just
Yeah.
cited it. We're going into Skynet. We're going into 1984. We're going into whatever. There's endless possibilities from whatever point of view you have. But I said to someone the other day, I said, it's a little deceptive because people say that we're in a really dark time. But if you think about it, if you go back 50 years, yes, some things were better and some things were worse, but was it is it really as dark as we think it is today? Or you go
No.
back 300 years or
No.
someone in the Middle Ages, they had it pretty bad.
Really bad.
And I'm reading a book about India around the time of Gandhi, and the average lifespan was under 40
Mm,
a century ago.
mm.
If you think about you're hitting 41 and now you're an old man or old woman, that's a pretty dark society you're living in.
Yeah.
So we talk about how we're going to something darkness, but I think it's a little relative. Sometimes I think we forget that and we kind of give up on hope, or we live in fear, or I saw someone the other day say, well, we had COVID and that's the worst thing that ever happened to the world. There's never been anything like it. I'm like, well, you didn't live through the Black Plague,
Hmm.
which pretty much devastated the world.
Yeah.
So it was all kind of relative. And I kind of like to keep that in my mind
Uh-huh.
because I like to be a bit of an optimist,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree with you.
a realistic optimist.
An idealist, yeah,
Yeah, an idealist who's also a realist.
a realistic idealist.
I guess something like that.
I like that.
You know,
I'm the same way. Yeah,
you
man.
know,
Uh, sorry, you gonna
I
say?
don't want to live in fear.
No, it's an illusion. It's not worth it.
Yeah. And I have too many things to do.
Yeah, right. Fear never helps, for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
All the stuff that we have to do, fear never helps. It's only constricting, for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. These are the times. These are the greatest times to be alive. Unless maybe
Oh,
there was times of like Atlantis and Lemuria and who knows, some kind of very, very ancient golden age. But as far as we know,
I,
this is it.
you know, I said to someone the other day, it might have been in a show that I did on my YouTube channel. I was saying, if you're young right now, yeah, younger than you and I, let's say under 20, you know, you're in school, you're curious about the world, you want to make your way,
Yeah.
all you have to do is pick up this little thing, go to whatever or hey Siri and ask, you know, what is XYZ? And you have everything ever right here.
Yeah.
I didn't when I was 20. I didn't have the internet. Well, I did, but it was pretty primitive. I had
Yeah.
AOL dial up and some forums, you know,
Mhm.
and I didn't have an email. When I got to college, they gave me an email and I go, I don't need, what am I going to do with an email? I check it
Yeah.
once a month and it'd be nothing in it.
Hmm.
Um, so I come from that. Makes me sound old, but it really wasn't that long ago. But today we have everything at our fingertips, and it's really amazing. I did a show where I was talking about how every spiritual book has been translated into English. Everything
That's a
you could
miracle.
possibly imagine, most of them have been translated in English, or they've been translated into something, or they're sitting in a library someplace. We have so much that our forefathers never had.
Yeah.
And it is truly an amazing world we live in right now.
Hmm.
And you even go back a century, like I said, to Gandhi, or even a century before that, and to think how far we've come and how much we have. It's truly a pretty awesome place we live in, for all the faults, and there's always faults. We have it. We have it pretty good. We're like the best
Yeah.
generations. Yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. I think the greatest part about it, one of the greatest parts about the time we're in is, like you said, the knowledge that has been bestowed from
Oh,
times past. All of this ancient wisdom, all of the scripture that is literally at our fingertips.
yeah.
It's if pretty much free. If it's not free, it's really, really cheap.
Yeah. And there's more of it than we can ever digest.
Yeah.
And we luckily, you and I live in a free world where we can discuss it.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
very lucky.
I was thinking about that last night. I have this podcast, this
Yeah.
platform. People tune
Yeah.
in, over 200 episodes. If I was to do this, I don't know, 500 years ago, I'd be burned at the stake. Right? I'm so grateful that I'm born in this time where I don't have to worry about my life. The freedom of
No,
speech
that's
is valuable.
that's not true. You probably wouldn't be. You'd be skinned alive and then burned on the stake.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Oh,
crazy.
and you'd be excommunicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. Exactly, man. The times we're in. Take this in. Everybody that's
Yeah,
listening, take this in.
it really is. And I talk to people who get really down on themselves and they feel bad and they're young and whatever. I'm like, no, just just be patient.
Yeah.
Just be patient. You've got everything right here. You just kind of got to get yourself out of your little slump, and
Mm,
it will happen because life is moves like that in like waves,
mm.
and you'll find everything you need. You know, just be patient. Be patient. That's really the key, though. That
Amen.
I had an old man tell me that when I was back in high school. He said, always carry a pencil and always be patient.
Hmm. Well, we don't need a pencil anymore.
I gave up on that one. But for years and years, I'd stick a pen in like my winter coat just to have it there, just to connect with that piece of advice.
Yeah.
Um,
Like a totem.
yeah, exactly. And but still be patient and these things don't give up. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
don't give up.
I live by that. I live by that and the idea that I want to experience as many cool things as possible.
Yeah, I feel you, man. Well, hey, man, this is already a good talk. We're already on a good note. But I
All
want to
right.
try and like I want to go into like what you do
Mm-hmm.
how you got
Mm-hmm.
on this wavelength and anything else about who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, we'll see how the
I
conversation unfolds from there.
I knew you'd ask that eventually.
Yeah, so
Because
what
you
is it that you try to do?
I do this, I talk.
Hmm.
Where should I? God, that's a big question. I'll give you the I guess sort of the blanket answer. So, I am an artist. I've always been kind of an artist. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a bit of a Sigma male, if you want the technical stuff. Um, and I've kind of always been led by this desire to just help others.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Seattle area, the days of grunge, and I'd go to local coffee houses like multiple times a week. Back in the days when you'd go to a coffee house on Friday night and there'd be a jazz band playing, or poetry night, and it'd be 100 people there. And I remember sitting in these coffee houses, there'd be 50 of us listening to some old guy sing folk tunes or some original song. And I'd go, why can't the world hear this? I would like, this person is so awesome. And that kind of has always driven me. Like, I want to help people and I want to share things. And I want us all to be creative and to find ourselves.
Mm.
And so that's just who I am.
Yeah.
And through time, I've done that. I've done theater. I'm a writer of mostly music books, though I'm working on some literature now. Um, I have done all sorts of things. These days, I tend to be focused on the platform of YouTube, where I weekly do a talk, something spiritual focused within the Sanatana Dharma Hindu world. Also, let's talk about current events, or I just kind of talk like this. And what I do is I'm just me. I just do me, and I
Hmm.
encourage you, whoever you are, speaking to you, Gary, or whoever else. I encourage you to find who you are
Hmm.
and to express yourself and to always ask questions. I think not asking questions and not thinking, and this goes back to the AI, is sort of a pandemic.
Yeah.
And you'll never find yourself if you stop asking questions. You'll
Hmm.
never know anything if you stop asking questions. That's how we grow. And there's no scripture in the world that says that supposedly God sent down that God said, stop thinking. No, this is we have brains. Um, and we're meant to come to conclusions and seek things out. It's was it from a century ago, the writer G.K. Chesterton once said the difference between us and dogs is that we can come to conclusions and speak philosophically, and a dog can't. So we should take advantage of this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's what I do. Every week I talk about things. I'm also reading the scriptures on my YouTube platform because I just find them interesting, the Hindu scriptures. And I know others don't have time to read them or haven't found them. Some of them are hard to find. So I'm just reading them as sort of a public service. Like right now, I'm reading all 108 Upanishads. And those are actually hard to find in English. There's about 16 of them you can buy at the local bookstore, and the rest you have to hunt for. And so that's sort of just a service. But I just talk and I just share, and I like to help folks learn who they are and also to not be afraid, as we've already spoken about, and to just live their best life because maybe you believe in reincarnation, maybe you don't, but right now we're in this moment together, so we should be taking the most advantage of this and living the best life we can now. And if you believe in reincarnation, then that's going to help you down the road. If
Hmm.
you don't, then this is your best life. So,
Yeah.
don't waste it. And I also like to talk to folks and just remind them, you're not alone. Those thoughts you're thinking, those questions you're asking, someone else might be asking them.
Yeah.
You're a young man. You're struggling to get a date. I talked about this recently. I was sort of riffing on Andrew Tate, and I'm like, yeah, I got it. I was there. My dating in college was horrible, so I understand you're going to be okay. Or here's some things to help you get there. And so that's kind of what I do.
Mm.
I just share. Um, I actually started doing the YouTube, and this is going to get very sort of esoteric. have studied religions all for most of my life. I've gravitated here, there, and wherever, and done a lot of stuff. And I started with Sanatana Dharma, and then came back to it, and I'm committed to that path. I think it's a great path. It's not the only one, but I think it's a great path because Sanatana Dharma allows us to discover ourselves versus just memorizing something and worshiping somebody, and that's it. We stop thinking. A few years ago, I had a vision, not a vision, but a voice, and I believe it's God. Maybe it's not, but it was pretty loud that said, I want you to read the scriptures. And if you don't, I'm done with you. Everything you do now is just a game. It's just whatever. You
Oh,
can read a million tarot card readings, and I used to love the tarot, but it's just it's the time. And I just had this voice in my head. It was really weird. And I've had things like this happen a couple times where I've just had this voice and it doesn't make any sense to me. And this voice said, read the scriptures. And I went, okay. So I started reading them, and I decided that I would read them on YouTube because that way I could help others. And so I just will grab a book off my shelf. This is the 10-volume Mahabharata, matter of fact. That's what all these books are there. This is the 10-volume Mahabharata. And so I'll just pick it up and just go, okay, press play. Chapter 393
mm-hmm.
and start reading. And you know, I don't care about views. I don't care, you know, if people like it or not. I'm sort of reading for my comprehension, but also for others who maybe, you know, they like books on tape or something. And then I started doing that, and eventually I found I just wanted to talk about stuff. Sorry, siren going by, if you can hear that.
Quick intermission.
There's a hospital a mile away. And I realized I just kind of wanted to talk about stuff like maybe, I don't know, Jordan Peterson is in the news, or Donald Trump, or things that are trending. And there just wasn't any way of connecting Donald Trump to this quote about the boar, who is the form of Krishna, et cetera, et cetera. So then I just started doing a weekly show that's now a year and a half old that you can find on lots of things. And I know you'll put links for all this down below.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's, and yeah, that's all I do.
Awesome.
That's it. I
pretty
just
wonderful.
I just want you to be you,
That's
because
it,
the
man.
world will be a better place.
Amen. Amen. Spread the good energy. Spread the love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything. I'm not a guru. If you like me, great. If you don't, okay. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I just do my thing.
That's cool.
And yeah, that's it. That's
Yeah.
a long answer, but I think I covered all the bases.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So let me ask you this one. What is it about the Hindu scripture that you resonate with? Why is that so special to you?
So that's a very interesting question. And I don't think anyone's ever asked that to me before.
Well, let's unpack it together.
Wow. So I'll tell you, and I wrote to an email about this, but I'll repeat it here. I'll repeat the story I told you on the email. I grew up as an atheist. Literally, just there wasn't any other way. You
Yep.
either an atheist in my house, or you were like something weird, crazy about you. I just come from a very middle class Anglo-Saxon background. You know, never went to church. First time I went to church, I was in the 5th grade. It was for an Easter pageant that we had been invited to, my parents and I. And they're doing their procession, and there's this guy basically naked with white underwear carrying a stick on his back. And I said to my mom, who's that? That was all I knew about religion.
Mm-hmm.
When the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses come knocking, close the curtains and call the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a Jewish neighbors, and we would go over their house. Yeah, I'd play with the kids, and I'd say to my mom, what's this weird writing on the wall? And my mom would literally say, oh, we got to go home now. Don't ask questions. That was my religious upbringing. Don't ask questions. It's weird. It's stupid. And as I wrote in the email to you, the Bible for me was fiction, and there's way better books to read. And at that point in my life, way shorter books.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a Star Trek novel I wanted to read that was way more interesting.
Yep.
Until it was 1997. I'm a sophomore in college, or maybe it was summer right before my sophomore year, and I'm walking down the street in the Seattle area, and there was a used bookstore that used to take a lot of books and just stick them outside and just leave them there. and you could just take them for free, or you could put stuff in the box. And I picked up this book, and it was of Neem Karoli Baba, made famous by Ram Dass, and lots of folks have followed him. I think is it Bill Gates or somebody actually followed him?
Steve Jobs, I think,
Steve
maybe.
Jobs, yeah, Steve Jobs. And I looked at him, like, reading about this guy who does miracles, and he lives in India, and I was interested in different places in the world. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like this. Are you effing with me? What the hell?
Would it be
So
here now?
no, it wasn't. I'm actually going to take the book off the shelf if you
Please
will.
do.
I read it, and it blew my mind. And I it was Miracle of Love.
Oh, yep, I got that one too.
Well tattered book, you see, that's only been tattered more in the years
Mm.
since. And I'm reading this going, I've never read anything like this. So I took the book and I put it back, and I said, okay, that's nice, but I don't need a book by a big bald guy from India. And I put it back literally, and I took about a few feet, and I went, okay, let me get it. And I picked it back up. I said, okay, I'm going to take this home and I'm going to read it. And I read everything I could find at this point in life. This was the day and age where one day I woke up in the morning and said, today I'm going to read Dante's Inferno. And I read the whole thing that day.
Mm-hmm.
Also smoked a lot of cigarettes, and I took it to the store with me, and I took it to the restaurant with me. But I picked this up, and I'm walking down the street, and I literally, for a moment, lost my sight. Everything went, I couldn't see. Everything went black. And then literally, it was just like, boom, I couldn't see a thing. And then suddenly my vision kind of came back, and it was sort of black and white. And then it was cloudy. And then suddenly I had a vision of the street. Now there's nobody on the street. The sun was shining, but it was behind a 8-story building. So it wasn't shining on me. And I was under an awning. And actually, there was 2 huge buildings there. So it's like New York City or something, where you're just under this awning and there's all these tall buildings. So I was actually in the dark, but I just remember stopping, and then I could see. I don't know what happened. I don't even know if I've imagined this. But as soon as my eyes came back, I knew in that minute there was a God. God existed. And that was going to be my goal, was to discover who God was.
That's pretty powerful.
That was 1997, little town called Bellingham, Washington. The bookstore was Michael's Books, which doesn't exist anymore. The book is right here, and I've never doubted since. And here it is, 2024.
Wow.
Now, I'm getting to your question. I know this is a long answer to your question but so this is 1997, pre-internet. I'm in college. First thing I did was I went to my library on my campus, and I grabbed some books on Hinduism. I just knew something Hindu. All I had was this. I didn't even know the word Hindu before I grabbed this book. And I grabbed the book, and I Xeroxed some pictures of Krishna and Shiva and whoever I could find, and put them up on my bedroom wall in the apartment I was renting. My roommate, she thought I'd gone bonkers, because literally the week previously I was saying how religion was for stupid people. And now suddenly I'm hanging pictures of mythological gods in my room.
Became a stupid person.
Yeah, I became a stupid person. and I signed up for a bunch of religion classes, and religion became my minor. But before those classes started, I was reading whatever I could, which was piecemeal. And I was reading this awesome book, which is just stories of Neem Karoli Baba. And at one point I went, he's near the Ganges, and the Ganges is special. And I thought you had to live near the Ganges, otherwise you couldn't follow this.
Mm-hmm.
Like an Egyptian has to live near the Nile or something, or a Mormon had to live in Utah. I was that ignorant. And so I went, I don't live near the Ganges. I'm in Seattle. Oh, I'm screwed. Oh, shit. So I literally was upset and hoped God would shine a light on me and take pity on me. So I decided to go to church, because I thought, well, maybe they've got something going on, even though I don't believe it, but maybe they have some nice music. So I went to this church nearby, an old brick building, had a great jazz band playing. I'm like, oh, this is really great. And I got really into Christian history. I was reading like John Knox, who founded the Presbyterian Church. I was reading Martin Luther. I got really into history because I love history. And so for about 3 years, I got really into Christian theology. And I would read some Hindu stuff in college classes, and I would really love it. It resonated with me, to go back to your question, but I couldn't tell you why. It just felt like there was something here that whatever. Anyways, I'm reading this stuff in class, and I'm studying other religions too in my classes. Everything from, I took a class on Jewish history. I took one on Middle Ages, Renaissance stuff, and whatever, anything I could find. But I always felt there was some truth in the Hindu scriptures that I didn't find anyplace else. So in my own personal journey, what happened was I read the Bible. I read it multiple times, and then I went, this isn't enough. I need to go deeper, and I need to go farther. So I picked up some Jewish texts. I was like, okay, even though might be post-Bible, it was like, okay, but Judaism is the tradition. And then I'm like, oh no, I got to find out some Buddhist stuff. I spent a summer practicing Buddhism at the San Francisco Zen Center. And I was always on this, like, trying to find the roots.
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to a musician and the musician goes, for example, Billy Joel, he used to say, I'm inspired by the Beatles. So I'm the guy who goes, oh, I got to listen to the Beatles now.
Yeah.
I got into jazz music because Charlie Watts, the drummer of the Rolling Stones, goes, well, I'm really a jazz guy. I was like, oh, really? And so I just delved right into jazz music because I was like, the roots. So that was my thing. And for some reason, the Hindu scriptures felt like everything, it was like the foundation of a house, and everything was kind of coming off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's logistically true or not, that's the feeling I got from it. So going back to your question of why does it resonate? It resonates for me, even to this day, because it feels like I'm getting foundational teachings.
Yeah. Same. I feel that.
And it gives me something more that I don't always get. The other thing I really like about it is there's 1,000 scriptures.
There's a lot.
I don't even know. I made up that number, but there's a lot. There's technically 320 Upanishads, and then the Vedas, and like I said, 10 volumes right here. Actually, that whole shelf is Hindu books. And that's just one shelf. I have another one over there. Mm-hmm. There's so much that it feels like it's an endless, you can always be growing and always learning.
Yeah.
And that really interests me. Do I believe all of it? Not necessarily. Do I have agreements or disagreements with some of it? All the time. But I feel like there's always something to explore. And honestly, if this book doesn't resonate with you, maybe this one will, or maybe another one will. And whereas in the Christian says, or here's the Bible. Well, that's it. That's all you got, people.
Yeah, right.
Well, maybe you could read the Book of Mormon, but that's the bad people.
Yeah.
I just I just feel like there's all this stuff here. Or maybe if I don't like the translation, and I have translations as a pet peeve of mine, I'll find another translation, and together we'll find some truth. It's not like you see in circles like, well, no, this is the King James version, and this is the only version you should read. I'm like, So I hate to sound like a reaction to Christianity, but everyone, you and me, and we all know Christian stuff. So it's a good thing to use as a comparison. Mm-hmm. If we were in Saudi Arabia, I'd probably be talking about the Quran, just as a point of reference.
Yeah.
So that's the long answer to your question. It resonates because it feels like there's something there. It feels like I'm not just learning the Rolling Stones riffs by Charlie. I'm actually learning, the drummers that inspired Charlie Watts,
Yeah.
And as a musician, like I want to get into what makes you tick. And that's what I get from the Hindu scriptures. I also find it very interesting because you can take them and look at them very much from the point of view of ritual. Here's things you should do. You should do this, or you should not do this. But then there's other people who completely disagree. Well, no, actually, you don't have to do that. I'm reading about Savarkar right now, who helped start the Hindutva movement, the Hindu nationalism movement in India. And he was on the opposite side of Gandhi. So Gandhi would say, well, no, we should not deal with modern technology. Savarkar was like, yes, you absolutely should deal with modern technology. And so I love that debate in Hinduism that we have. You can hold two completely different positions and both be Hindu.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. And that's just in ritual things. But also, what's amazing about it is, let's say you don't believe that the Mahabharata is historical. You don't consider it as a history book, you consider it a fiction book, which many people do. That's a whole nother podcast. We'll be here for days.
Yeah.
You can then read this like you would read
Yeah.
Confucianism or
Oh, yeah.
something. It
Hmm.
becomes now a philosophy. And
Yeah.
there's still such richness here. Whether I think this is all BS and there's no such thing as a God, there's still some great philosophy here.
Exactly.
And honestly, I don't need these gods to be alive. A Christian needs Jesus to die on the cross. If Jesus doesn't die, the whole I'm going to be saved doesn't work anymore. But Krishna doesn't save me.
Hmm.
Vishnu doesn't save me. These are lessons for life and how to live your life.
Yeah.
And when Rama says in the Ramayana, there's one book, there's one thing where he gives 100 points of how to be a great leader in a government. They have nothing to do with religion. It's just okay. That's just great philosophy,
Yeah.
and so that's a super long answer now, but
Good.
that's kind of how I see this and why I think it's ritual. I like transparency and I like being open like this. So apologies if the answers are too long,
That was great. I'm
but
following you.
also I don't know what someone will relate to, so I'm just kind of putting it all out there, and you never know. So there you
Yeah.
go.
You never know.
I'll make the next answer shorter.
No, that was fine, man. Say whatever's on your mind.
Mm,
You know, speak from the heart. I feel you
awesome.
on that though.
I know.
I feel as though they are the most pure form of truth.
Mm,
And they are what is truth? You know, what makes truth relevant? Um, it's relevant if it's you can translate it back to you, right? I feel as though all religious paths in their purest form, how they're supposed to be, is translated into your lifestyle, right? How one goes about taking the lessons from the parables or whatever it is into your own life. I think Hinduism not only is the purest, it also is the most in depth. Like you said, there's
mm,
so much to it. There's so many lessons that can come from it. And yeah, that's what makes it very powerful is there's so much and it's closest to the source, it's closest to the roots, like you said. It's the oldest. It's literally the oldest written down
mm.
literature of religion. I don't know if you even want to call it a religion. Sometimes I don't even think it's like any other religion, right?
I want to ask you a question before you keep going. What do you mean by pure?
That's a good one. What do I mean by pure? Untainted by dogma, as in the the versions that we have now seem to be very closest to the source of how they were spoken back in the day or when they were written down. So they're like, you know, if you reference Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever else it is, I feel as though they've been tainted by institutions and twisted, distorted in their true
Mm,
meaning.
mm,
I feel as though Hinduism is the cleanest, if you want to say another word, cleanest, the purest, the just the closest to truth, I think I already said. And that alludes to being able to translate it into your life to hopefully lead a better life. If we reference Christianity in that part, it's hard to see if you know how to approach the Bible in the right way, it can be looked at in that way, like translate it into yourself
mhm,
for sure.
mhm.
But if you're not careful enough, you could just get sucked into a cult. You know, you can get sucked into the cult-like thinking and bow down to outward idols. I feel as though Hinduism, even though there are stories, there is a lot of symbolism. I feel as though, personally speaking, it's very easy to take that symbolism and transmute it, translate it into your own life. And that's just personally speaking, you know?
Would you say, so I have a philosophy here or an observation. Maybe you'll agree with this. If you
Hmm.
don't, feel free to argue me out of it. I might be wrong.
Hmm.
I've often thought there are some religions where you take the belief system, the dogmas, whatever, the rules, and you just sort of incorporate them into your life. And you don't become a different person, you're still you. You just now have expanded into this horizon, this new horizon. But there are other religions where you actually take the stuff onto you with the point of destroying yourself, dumbing down yourself. Not, you don't want your personality to come through. You are to become part of this other thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've often thought about that. I had a friend actually say this to me years ago. He described one religion and he goes, um, it's like if there's a fence, you're to become part of the fence, like a vine, versus other religions where no, the fence just goes around your house, you still exist or something. You're not supposed to get rid of your own personality. Does that make sense? And would you agree with that? Or
Yeah.
is that just a random observation I've made
That makes
on a
sense.
Sunday? Okay.
So you're
Yeah.
saying the classical ones, we'll say like the Abrahamic religions,
Yeah.
are the ones that you get sucked into. You get you get persuaded to join the cult, you could say, right? But the Eastern philosophies are a little bit more alluding to finding your how it works for you, not really cult-like in that
Yeah,
same
that's what
way.
I say. I'm
Hmm.
not necessarily all the Eastern religions, and there might be Western Judeo-Christian things that, but I just always felt like some religions don't want you to be yourself.
No
They don't
way.
want you to learn about yourself. They don't want you to expand
No.
your horizons.
Hmm.
They want you to focus right
Yeah.
on them. And I hate to use this example, but it actually is a really good one. The Jehovah's Witnesses, if you
Oh
know
yeah.
anything about them, you're
Yeah.
like, when you get into that, you're going to be studying their stuff all the time. And you just take anything you like is gone. Your
Hmm.
hobbies are gone.
Hmm.
And that to me, that's scary.
That's very scary. Yeah, man.
That's a
Yeah.
understatement of the year.
That's another reason why I resonate with Eastern philosophy a lot more as well, is because it's all about you. I mean,
Mhm.
it's hard to say, it's hard to use an umbrella term of Eastern philosophy because there's so many different
What do you
flavors,
resonate with, Gary?
especially the Upanishads,
Uh-huh. Why?
because it's lessons for me. It's lessons that mean something to me. It's not like this outward story, right? It's not like this guy that died on a cross for me, so you should revere him for some reason, or it's not about any outward idol. It's about the inward idol. And I think that's what's important. Whatever philosophy it is, if it's not about you, then it doesn't, why? It's just a cult. That's how I see it. It doesn't make any sense and it's not valuable. So, yeah, I like Buddhism in that regard too. Buddhism is some may say conflicting with Advaita, but if one knows how to look at it, it may just be two sides of the same coin. But point of the story is about you. Buddhism is about you, how to liberate oneself through your rituals and through your lifestyle to find a little bit of peace, right?
How did you discover the Upanishads?
It was through just taking a, well, that's actually a good question. I don't know how,
You asked me a question like that. I'm throwing
yeah,
it back to you.
no, it's good. It's good. I like it. Well, I did the classical 200-hour yoga training, and
Oh,
that got me
are you a yoga teacher then?
hmm. Yeah, I'm not doing it currently, but I am certified, if that
Okay.
means anything.
Certified, baby.
Yeah, I'm a certified yoga teacher, but I've done it a lot in the
Okay.
past. And I did the classic 200-hour yoga training, which is just like it's just a drop in the bucket, but it
Yeah.
got my feet wet
Okay.
into the world of Sanskrit, into the whole idea of
Ah.
yoga. And then I think one of the things that were in the itinerary was to read the Upanishads. It was
Uh-huh.
that in the Gita.
Yes.
So
I've seen that in other yoga classes. People always seem to, or they some of the Upanishads and then the Gita.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not all the Upanishads.
and,
No, it was just a little.
and the Yoga Sutras. Did you have to read the Yoga
Yeah,
Sutras?
yeah,
Yeah.
that was in there too, for
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, I think that was actually my first exposure to yogic philosophy was the sutras,
Ah.
and then slowly worked my way into the Upanishads and the Gita. I feel like that's the top three. If I was to recommend any three books to
Mm.
anybody, it'd be the Gita, Upanishads, and the sutras, and you're good. That's a solid foundation.
Can I ask when you if you want to stay in that moment in the past, what did your how big was your class of folks who were doing this training?
There's only four of us.
Oh wow, that's small. Okay.
Yeah.
Was it online or in person?
Half of it was online in person. It was 2020, so it
Oh,
occurred
okay. Okay.
right at the point of isolation, the
I
point
know,
of
yeah.
the pandemic. It was very
Lock, yeah.
strange. It was very strange. I'm going through yoga teacher training, and then the lockdown happened.
Boom, baby.
Yeah. And actually, on that note, so how I've explained this before, but I'll say it again. How I got involved with doing the podcast was through a yogic philosophy class all over
Oh,
Zoom. So it was a
oh,
6 hour workshop with this guy who was actually the first guest on my podcast for anyone
oh.
that's curious. So you can go look. It was with this guy with 6 hours, just him talking about, I think it was actually the Gita or the Upanishads. It was just, we were going over some kind of literature and he was explaining it so well. And I was extremely interested. I was asking a little more questions than everybody else. And
Troublemaker.
yeah, yeah, he's probably like, who is this guy? No, he liked it. It was great. And then there's something that clicked in the midst of me asking the questions that said, this is like an interview. You're conducting, it seems like an interview in the moment with this guy right now. I said, oh, this is pretty cool. This just comes natural in me. Natural curiosity. I think you said how important that is. That just came natural to me. And then from that point on, after that Zoom call, that 6 hour Zoom call, I said, wait a second. I can just do this myself. I can download Zoom, hit up people on email, and conduct my own interviews. And here I am, 200 episodes
and
later,
and and it looks like you've been very successful.
moderately successful. I think
You
so.
you interviewed David Icke.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. When I interviewed David Icke, I'm like, that's
Ike,
when I
sorry, Ike. Yeah.
David Icke. That's the people that don't like him. It's David Icke.
Okay, then I just gave it away that I don't like him.
It's David Icke. Yeah. Hey, love him or hate him, he's a profound character
Yeah.
in the play. He's not right about everything, but he's right about some
Yeah.
things. Some things. Some things he's on to. Other things it's like, I don't know.
He's, for someone like him and other very controversial figures, I say this all the time. Don't cut them off. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Learn from them. They might have some very interesting things to say, but if nothing else, let's say they're your enemy, your figurative enemy. They're that icky person. You're learning what your enemy thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important. So if you want to go after him and attack him or defeat him in an argument, if you learn what he thinks first, you're going to be so much stronger than many people who just go, well, I heard that you did this, but I haven't read your book,
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm always encouraging people to read both sides of every story. I actually read a book online. It was like a 200-page takedown, debunking of the Srimad Bhagavatam, showing how that it's nothing but a really poorly written novel.
Wow.
And it just went through and ripped it apart. Even I'm still a little doubtful because it was like everything. But you know what? I'm happy I read it. I'm like really happy I read it, and I love reading stuff from another point of view. I love getting that big picture because the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's the way I kind of see it, and then the third one.
Yeah, the third one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm really into that. I really, so if you're talking to David, whatever, that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
So you've been very successful on some level.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm just going with the flow, just having fun, seeing what happens. It's
so I want to go back to your yoga class.
Yeah.
How did your other students respond to reading these texts? Do you know?
They were falling asleep. Like imagine 6 hours in a Zoom call, right? You're reading stuff. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was awesome. But if you're not attuned to it and you're just into yoga for the physical aspects of it, you're just in it for the exercise and that's all you know. And then you got this guy rattling off the Upanishads and it was really deep philosophy.
Yeah.
It was actually like, wow, this is crazy that I'm in this right now. And I don't remember exactly what I just remember being extremely profound. Yeah,
what do you think of the Bhagavad Gita? Feelings on that? Because you said shots, which a lot of people, very few people I've met have said, oh, it's the Gita. But you have that's different. So now I'm curious, how does the Gita resonate with you?
It's very valuable. I feel as though there's very valuable insights in there, and it's very succinct. And I've read it twice, I think, 2 or 3 times, but not that it's something that you do anyway. It's more of just like a reference. It's not
actually. if you see this white thing, it's a book on its side. That's the Bhagavad Gita as it is right here on my shelf.
Yeah.
I have it on my side to remember. Well,
Hmm.
those are books I've read, and it's just that's the only space for it. I'm reading it for like the third time right now,
Uh-huh.
but I've read a few different translations of it, and I'm now just going through the purports on as it is, which I haven't read in quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, but my thing in the Gita is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
Hmm.
My two favorite chapters, which I think are two of the most important chapters in the book. Chapters 1 and 2.
Really? I like to
Yeah,
skip over one.
everybody does, of course. And then he blew his conch shell and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No, I think those two chapters are the most important
Why is that?
because so I probably people watching this show or watching your stuff, they may have some familiarity with the Gita. So I won't go into the story, but that's setting the stage. And we get the initial conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And Arjuna is going, my life sucks. I got to kill Uncle Bob over there. And oh shit, I don't want to do this. I'm going to go home and eat a pizza.
Hmm.
I would rather be home right now and watch Game of Thrones than to be in Game of Thrones. That's basically the conversation here.
Yeah.
you know? And so Arjuna is in this situation, and Krishna, the charioteer, is going, not in my house. No, 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 no. You're not going to do that. It is your duty to fight this battle. You have to do this. This is your duty. I think that is one of the most valuable teachings in that book, because when I look around me and I look at my life, I don't think most people know what their duty is.
Yeah.
I think they would be rather watching Game of Thrones. And
Uh-huh.
I love that show, so I'm totally cool with binging it. But your duty on this earth, God didn't put you here to
Mm.
watch 12 hours of Game of Thrones this weekend
Yeah.
after sleeping till noon. God didn't put you here to watch 6 hours of pornography today. That is not your duty.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not condemning pornography, but you have more in this life to live for. God didn't put you here to work your job and then go home and get drunk every night. You
Hmm.
have a duty. And most of us, I don't think, ever connect with that. And then you'll meet somebody. And I did a lot of theater growing up, on and off stage. And I remember meeting people. I'm like, oh my God, you're like one of the best playwrights I've ever met. Or you were meant to be a director. I couldn't imagine you doing anything else in this world. And that's all you do is you direct theater, and you're the happiest person on earth. Like, and it's just like they're doing their duty. But I think most of us are really out of touch with ourselves. And so we
Yeah.
never find that duty. So
Yeah.
for me, when I'm reading the first two chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, where they're talking about the duty, I'm like, that is the most, who cares about seeing God on chapter 16 or whatever it is, if you're not doing your duty? So for me, those are the two most important chapters. And
Yeah.
everyone glosses over them and skips over them, and that's totally okay.
Hmm.
But that to me is like, that's it. Because I want to connect with myself, and I want you to connect with yourself, Gary, and I want anyone watching to connect with themselves and to learn them and be who they are and to become themselves, that unique person they are. Because was it Aleister Crowley said every man and woman is a star, so
Yeah.
we're all unique. And that's to go back to the first question you asked me. That's what I do. I just want you to be you. And maybe some people hate you, maybe some people love you, but that's okay. My
Hmm.
goal was not to teach people to make as many friends as possible, because that to me, that's not that important.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
move and we lose contact with those friends. It's to be you.
Yeah.
So for me, those two chapters, that's the initial conversation. And then Krishna's like, yeah, well, I'm on the Red Wedding. I'm about to watch that episode of Game of Thrones, and that's a really good one. And
Yeah.
I'd rather go home and watch it. And I really, really, really want to watch the Battle of the Bulge, because that's like one of the greatest moments on TV. Krishna, do you mind if I go home? And
Hmm.
Krishna goes, no.
Yeah.
And then proceeds to tell him in a very, very long dialogue why he shouldn't go home. But it's all pivotal. I mean, imagine if the Bhagavad Gita opened and Krishna went, or Arjuna went, yeah, I'll fight. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
No
Hmm.
book. There's
It
no book.
wouldn't mean as much.
Yeah, it's done. We're done. Okay.
Hmm.
Do you sharpen your knife? Okay, great. Got your
Yeah.
iPods in, whatever. Okay, go
Yeah.
for it. So that to me, that's the biggest thing.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's something
Yeah.
that I actually never thought of before. I mean, to be honest with you, I think you can read the first chapter and then once the stage is set, then I think
Yeah.
personally
Uh,
speaking, I don't need to read it again. But that's
yeah.
just me.
And honestly, you could very well read the first chapter and fall asleep. I totally got
Makes sense
that.
though. And that's
Yeah.
alludes to the idea of what we said before is it comes back to you. If you
Yeah.
realize how the stage is being set,
Yeah.
it's being set for you. You're fighting this battle. You are,
Yeah.
in a way, Arjuna. And
Yeah.
this is a guidebook. What precedes in the book is a guidebook for you to
Hmm.
fulfill your duty.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to do what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to listen to God because God's talking to you and you shouldn't give him the finger.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, powerful. So do you think everybody on earth has a duty instilled in us
I
from God?
do. I come and go on many of these ideas, and sometimes I swear, depending on what day it is, I turn myself into an atheist,
Yeah.
even arguing things, and I'm always asking questions. But I believe if, and my logic might not be sound, and I'll even confess that if God has placed us in this world and there is a God who is overseeing us, I believe that God wants us to do things like there is a goal. God is in that he wants something to happen. And I kind of look at it like, yeah, we kind of do all have a role to play, you know, like if I go to work and I work in a law firm and there's 12 lawyers and then another dozen of us who are on staff, we each have our role to play. And every day I go to work for 8 hours and I have my role to play. And together we all are achieving some goal of keeping this business going and being a respected law firm and winning cases and helping people with whatever. I do estate. I'm in the estate planning department. So helping you with your will or your probate. Um, that is the goal. And for me, I just figured like that's all of us. We all have something to contribute to this world if we
Yeah.
want to, but we don't. Now there is an argument to that because someone will say, and and I'll even give up my hands on this and go, well, the argument is that someone who died in a gas chamber in Germany, they have a role to play. So their death was meant to happen. And that's where I kind of go, well, yeah, I know. My theory is very much based on having a nice life in America.
Yeah.
Or a child starving in South Africa. Yeah, I got it. I got it. And in that case, I actually have to fall back on the bad argument that life is a mystery and I don't know what God's plan is.
Yeah.
There is evil and horrible things in this world, but
Hmm.
sometimes, and I did a show on this just recently, um, I don't think we know what God's plan is. And so, yes, it looks like there's evil and horrible things in the world, but maybe they're there for a reason. And if you believe in reincarnation, then everyone who's died has come back. So maybe there is something happening and God's leading us someplace. And yes, it looks horrible from our point of view.
Yeah.
But if we could read the whole book at once and we get to the ending, we can go, oh, yeah, I understand why that happened.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my cop out for the argument. I'm like, no, it's a mystery, and we just need to do our best to contribute what we can and what we feel moved to contribute to, and that's that's my push.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you mean
I hopefully
because
I made sense with all I said though.
yeah, I know what you mean, right? Because if and this is what I also battled with when I was an atheist.
Mm,
If there is a God, how can there be the Holocaust? How can there be starving children in Africa? How can there be so much suffering if there is a God?
yeah.
Well, I believe in God now,
Yeah.
as do you.
Well, we're the dumb people. I said
We
earlier.
become the
We're the
dumb
stupid. We're the
people.
dumb people.
Somehow, some way, we've been dumbified.
Yeah.
I can say 100%, I feel God.
Hmm.
Yet the suffering is still there. So how do we weigh that? Like, how does that even make sense, right? That goes
Hmm.
beyond rationale. Because before in the atheistic phase, and you can probably attest to this, it
Oh,
was all rationale, science,
they're
logic.
done. Yeah.
So it makes sense how someone can bring up that argument because
Mm,
it's logical. It's like, dude, you really think there's a
mm,
God?
mm.
There's people really, really suffering right
Yeah.
now. And I think it only makes sense in the greater context, like you said. If you were to put in reincarnation, the huge story, God's plan that transcends our life,
Mm,
I think that's how it kind of makes sense. And it's not like we're trying to cope, we're trying to
yeah,
defend our belief of God, but
yeah,
I think that is actually the truth. I think
yeah.
this plan, if you want to call it a plan, that has been put forth maybe from the beginning of time, who knows, but it's a big, big plan.
Mm,
It transcends our little lives and
yeah.
all the things that happen to us, right? And yeah, that sounds entitled to say because look at us, we're in our comfortable
Mm,
houses and living in New England. It's summertime, we're feeling good. So yeah, it depends on the day. I guess,
mm,
like you said before, it depends on the day and how we're feeling. But
yeah.
I think it's earnest in our belief, right? It's earnest to say that there's a bigger plan. Truly, God works in mysterious ways,
Mm,
and it's all for some reason. And that sounds so callous to say, right? How can I say that? But it is truly, I think, all for some greater
no,
reason that transcends our lives.
no. There is another point I'd also bring up, is people say, well, how is, everyone wants to know, why is there evil in the world?
Hmm.
Why is there, it's a
Yeah,
perfectly legit question.
yeah.
And I hear from so many people, they say, actually, my father-in-law said this to me, I think last Christmas. We were being forced to go to a mass, not a mass, but a candlelight Christian thing with my mother-in-law. And he's like, how can a really good God have a world with so much evil?
Yeah. Hmm.
That was his defense, but we still had to go. And I kind of told him very briefly my theory on that is that is a Judeo-Christian point of view, that we have this white God, maybe with a beard, maybe not, who's just perfect, who never does anything immoral. And then we have this devil, demon, Satan, whatever, on the other hand, who's actually causing all the evil in the world. That's a Judeo point of view.
Yeah.
So we have a good God, and but so anything wrong in the world is due to Satan. Now, I don't believe in Satan. I don't believe in Satan at all. I think Satan is a fiction. I don't think it's biblical. I don't believe in the Bible. So I don't believe in biblical fiction. I don't believe in any of that. I don't believe in hell according to the Bible. I just don't. I very clearly keep my stuff Vedic or Sanatana Dharma or even Neo-Hinduism at times, but it's not Christian anymore. I just,
Yeah.
whatever. So that's just me, and that's just my point of view. So I argue, well, in my world of Sanatana Dharma, I don't believe in an all good God. This white guy with a long beard with a staff, and I don't believe in that, because when I read the scriptures, whatever they are, the Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Puranas, Agamas, anything, that's not what God is portrayed as, this perfect all heavenly being.
Mm.
God
Mm.
is Shiva and Shakti.
Yeah,
God is
exactly.
Vishnu and Lakshmi.
Yeah.
God, according to one story, chopped off the head. Shiva chopped off the head of his wife's lover and stuck an elephant on the head. That's one story of Ganesha's upbringing. I'm like, that's not a good God. A good God doesn't chop off the head of, because there's no way you can say he's doing good, but there's going to be bad. So I don't believe in an all good God and an all bad demon. And actually, in Hinduism, we do have a hell. It's in Canto 5 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's just a temporary place, more like a purgatory. And it's run by Yama. But Yama is a job that is actually held by different people. It's not an actual being. So I could reincarnate as Yama, and for 10,000 years, I get to rule over hell, which is actually lots of different places. I've seen anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 different places. Like there's one for lawyers, one for shoe salesmen, one for doctors,
Hmm.
um, one for IRS men. There's all these planets. So you could be Yama, and then you reincarnate as a tree for a while. But Yama is not a devil. If you read Canto 5, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I've done on my channel, so I'm speaking from my own reading, Yama is a devotee of God and is worships at God's feet. And there's one point in the canto where Yama does something wrong, and even though this is the king of hell, asks for forgiveness from from Krishna Vishnu. There is no story of the Christian devil Satan asking for forgiveness.
Hmm.
There's no story of the devil going, "Oh, I'm sorry, I said the wrong word. Will you forgive me, Jesus, or whoever?" That doesn't exist. So I don't have this good and white thing. I have good. So gods for me are yin yang. They're good and bad. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, you're
Yeah.
with me so far.
Yeah.
So if we then borrow the Christian idea, that the Christian idea says we are made in the image of God, if that's true, if maybe that's one of the few things the Christians got, well, if good and bad, if my God is good and bad, and I look at the world and the world is good and bad, wouldn't that actually imply, looking at the world, that we are actually made in the light of God?
Yeah.
If God is good and bad, he created a world good and bad. That makes more sense to me than the Christians who say, well, we're created in the image of God who is all perfect, but our society is pretty effed up. It's not really much in the, oh, but the devil made us do it. We were actually pure. When were we pure? When I was born in diapers?
Yeah.
My parents wouldn't have said I was very pure.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I was Adam and Eve, I was pure. You mean when Adam walked around naked? Yeah. When was this pure point? And then the devil ruined it? That doesn't make sense. And we've got these horrible bodies that do horrible things and whatever. I'm like, there's some good days and bad days, and I get a migraine. I'm laying in bed and I'm in the image of God. You mean God gets migraines? God gets dehydration from these horrible sunny days that he's created. Why would he create a sunny day and give me dehydration? But if God is good and bad, and I am good and bad, and you, Gary, and we're all good and bad, then we are truly. That's, to me, that's why evil exists. To go back to the question is because we are in the image of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, to me, my answer of why. I mean, yes, you could logically argue it and say I'm part of the dumb people, and I'm totally fine with that. But that is it. We are God. We're made in God's image.
Yeah.
So there's evil in the world because there's evil in God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, man. It's one way of looking at it is like, would the good be so good if there was no bad?
Well, there's that point too. Yeah, that's a very valid point.
Would Batman be so cool if the Joker didn't exist?
Yes, because he'd still have the Riddler.
Yeah, well, would there be heroes if there was no villains? I guess is a better point.
Well, we'd have Wolverine, and he's kind of a mix.
What is he? I don't know about Wolverine. Yeah, so you get my point though?
I do get your point. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a good way of looking at it. We have darkness and we have light.
Yeah. And we need them. We have to have, like you said, if I don't know how good something is, I don't know how bad I have it.
Exactly.
I mean, I maybe some philosopher who is way smarter than me could argue that you don't need one to have the other. But I don't understand how. I don't see how you can't without comparing it. I have an ex-girlfriend who loaned me a book once, and it was a novel, and she said, you should read this because I read. You can see how much I read. These are both my shelves, and there's another one over there. She said, you should read this. This is the greatest novel I've ever read. Okay. I'm like, okay, whatever. Kept the relationship going a little bit longer. So I took the novel, and later, as it was completely dying, and in a big argument, she goes, well, I gave you that book and you didn't sit down and read it immediately. So you don't care about me, yada, yada. And like, it takes me time to read things,
Yeah.
But she reviewed to me, she said, and she was 26 at the time. She goes, well, that's the only book I've ever read outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And she goes, it was really hard to read because reading is really hard and boring. That's a whole nother conversation. But so basically, this girl has read one book outside of school. She hates reading, finds it boring, finds it hard. So when she says that this is the greatest novel ever, would we take her opinion for it?
No.
I don't think anyone would take her opinion for it. No
Mm-mm.
matter how much I was into her at the time, I wasn't going to take her. I was like, no, you're full of hogwash.
Mm-hmm.
You have no opinion because you don't have anything to compare it to. Not counting books you read in school because we're forced to read those.
Yeah.
but but it's like that's not someone you take the opinion with. But hopefully, like I share on my show, I've read enough stuff so that when I tell you a book is really good, you can kind of go, oh yeah, I think he's read. Yeah, I think he knows what he's reading because he's read enough things. So I can tell you that. And so, if we, and that's sort of like, if we don't have the good and the bad, we need that to compare it to. Otherwise, you're like my girlfriend who says, this is the best book, but it's the only one I've read.
Mm.
How do
Yeah,
you know it's the best book ever if you've never read anything?
exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's what seems like this incarnation is all about, is a learning process. Earth school, as they say.
Yeah, which sucks because it
That
never
sucks.
ends.
Well, do you think that's what this is, this path is
I'm,
for? As in,
I'm slightly facetious when I say it sucks, but it never does end.
well, life is suffering, as they say in
Yeah,
Buddhism.
exactly. And even the Buddha, after he became enlightened under the Bodhi tree, still had to live.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
if you read his teaching, I'm no expert at all on Buddhism, but the little bit I've read 20 years ago, his teachings did change and people came to him with new problems. When he
Mm-hmm.
was fresh out of the wilderness going, I got this, guys, things were a little different than whatever 20, 30 years later, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So he was still learning, even though he had the great realization. There's always this path ahead of you. And I think a lot of people, they talk about enlightenment or nirvana or moksha or whatever, and they're like, okay, that's it. I know everything. No, you don't.
No,
And
no.
even if no, you don't. And if you think you do, you didn't achieve anything.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're walking on steps to go upstairs, they've stopped halfway and they think they're on the second floor. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, 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 because no.
Delusion.
Yeah, it's just ego tripping.
Yeah.
you know,
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean. You've been around.
Yeah, I've been
I'm sure.
around a few of those individuals. I think they
Mm,
got it all figured out.
I'm sure you've even interviewed folks. You walked away going, not too
Yeah.
sure about that guy or girl.
Yeah. There's some people, not naming any names.
No, but it's part of the territory. And
Yeah.
that's actually, and to say that is honesty, is being honest about, yeah, I understand some of the people on my team aren't team players, but that's part of also this learning thing, is learning to be honest and learning
Yeah.
to go, yeah, I got it. Because if everything is beautiful and unicorns and rainbows and jelly beans, we're never going to get anywhere.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Do you feel as though there is, we can recognize the darkness, the suffering.
Mhm.
Yeah, life sucks, as you said.
Mm.
We can recognize that, but what is inside of you that says, well, I still want to be the best version of myself and I want others to be the best version of themselves? What leads you into that passion rather than nihilism? Because one could look at the world, oh, life is suffering. Okay, this sucks. So what is it inside of you that says, despite the darkness, I'm still going to work with the light?
Uh, well, I think that's a good question. And let's be honest. Darth Vader had the way better uniform, so being on the dark side is very tempting.
Hmm. Yes. It's all
Luke
about temptation.
Luke Skywalker had bad hair,
Yeah.
and whatever, he's got a sister he didn't know about. It is very tempting to be on the dark side.
Hmm.
But I think, I don't know, maybe tomorrow I'll give you a different answer.
Okay.
Being good and following the good is our innate instinct.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think our innate instinct is to become a serial killer
Hmm.
or a rapist or a pedophile or joining the mob.
No.
I don't think that is our innate nature. Now, I'm not talking about like fighting and disagreeing. I'm not. That I think is normal. That's completely normal. Um, but doing what we would consider bad things, I don't think that's natural.
Hmm.
I think that is a response to the stimuli around us. I think that's a response to society putting us in a hole, putting us in a place, making our life difficult. I'm going to use a very current day thing. And you know the discussion over incels,
Yeah.
young men who can't get a date. We've
Yeah.
both been young men. So I think, you know what I mean. And they talk about how all these incels are hateful, MAGA, they hate women and they do all this. And I don't believe that because I struggled being a total geek when I was young. I'm still kind of a geek. I totally got it. I wanted to be Jack Kerouac and it wasn't very successful. So I know how hard it can be to get a date. But the thing is with these young men who are struggling right now, it's not that they hate women. It's just that they've been put in a place where they feel they're powerless and women don't like them. They don't have a good job. They're living at home. So they react and they do things which may not be good. And I think that's a lot of what we see is people are innately good, but they're trapped. They don't know what to do. I can't get a job. So, my friend says he'll cut me in if I'll help him rob this store. That
Hmm.
sounds way better than working at the 7-Eleven for less money. Why not do that? Because your life in 7-Eleven seems horrible. I have a friend, an acquaintance actually, who is just a miserable SOB. He's in his 50s. He's lived on welfare his entire life. He's got some mental issues. And we text a couple of times a year. And he says, well, I don't leave the house anymore because everyone is so, argumentative and I can't stand society. So by not leaving the house, though, he creates this insular world and that just makes him more angry. And so his attitude just gets worse and worse and worse. But really, it's in response to what he's dealing with. And I think that's a lot of it. So I think we are actually really good people. But we get lost and we get stressed out and we get miserable and we hate our jobs and we're in bad relationships and we just naturally respond. Kind of
Hmm.
like a mother naturally responds when her child is sick. The mother doesn't think about that. Well, child's sick. Gosh, I could do laundry or I could go get a glass of orange juice. No mother well, I'm sure there's mothers that think that, but the motherly instinct takes over. They just know
Yeah.
I'm going to help this kid and then I'll do my laundry because the laundry can wait. And if a mother said otherwise, I'll help my son or my daughter with chicken pox, but I got to do laundry and I got to go to the movies and I need a new pair of jeans. When I get back, maybe tomorrow, I'll help them with the chicken pox. They'll
Hmm.
if a mother did that, we call that mother insane.
Yeah.
That's called bad parenting because
Yeah.
it's going against the human instincts.
Yeah.
So that for me is what keeps us there. And then becoming aware of, hey, right now my life sucks. So now I'm gonna, am I gonna go in to it and do something bad or do something good? Let me give you a personal experience. I lived in Japan for 3 years, and I taught English to kindergartners, and I basically enjoyed it, but there was rough days. But I spent a lot of time drinking. Um, I won't tell you how many times I would not make it home at night and have to stay at a bar till 4 a.m. when the subway was going because I was too drunk to leave at midnight, or to walk down the block. I drank a lot. It's a Japanese culture thing too.
That sake.
Oh man, it's a little bit of everything.
Hmm.
um, and I drank and I partied, and the culture is made for that. A lot of it was just getting out of my head because I wasn't really happy in the house I was living in. My dating life sucked. I just wasn't happy being an outsider for 3 years. And so I was reacting to that by going home or going to the bars and getting massively drunk.
Yeah.
So you're sleeping on the sidewalk. And then eventually I woke up to that when I had literally $20 to my name. And I made like 1,800 a month. And I drank it all away. And I had $20 to my name, and I'm like, oh, F me, I'm done. And that's actually when I decided I gave my notice of my job. I said, when the school year hits the summer, I'm done. I'll be going back home. And I cleaned myself up a lot. And I suddenly then realized how much free time I had when I didn't go to the bars anymore. So then so now I have all this free time because I'm not at a bar till 4 in the morning and then drinking Red Bull the next day and going back to the bar the next day, like on a Saturday. I drink Friday night and I'd go back Saturday night. Um, I started going, well, now I got to do something with my time. I'm still frustrated. I'm still whatever. But then I started making little movies and I started playing guitar more. And I just started doing a lot of writing. And I started refocusing my energy into positive things, which is how I live my life now. I've had some really shitty jobs, really, really bad jobs. Like I was a door-to-door salesman for 2 days, and I've
Yeah.
done telephone crap, and I hated it. But instead of going home and getting drunk or whatever, I would go home and then write something or play music or do something positive. So that way I'd like, I wasted 8 hours, but I spent 6 hours accomplishing more than I did all day. And that's how I live my life. And that's how I, do the good and balance things out, whatever. I forget there was a point there and I might have derailed the point, but but that's kind
Well,
of how I live. Yeah.
yeah, I don't even remember the question, to be honest, but
Mm,
we're on the point of this inherent goodness
mm.
despite the darkness,
Yes. Yes.
right? That's what's
Yes.
interesting to me. We can recognize the villains, we can recognize the Riddler, Joker, that it's
Yeah.
there, the suffering. Yet
Yeah.
there's something in us, and I think
Hmm.
all of us, that pulls us to goodness, right? Maybe that's God. Maybe that is the portion of God that we can feel within, the higher self, as the New Age people will say. There's some pull, right, toward inherent goodness.
I said it was innate.
Hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. But it's hidden, it's distorted in a lot of people, not judging, just from
Mm,
observation and from
mm,
personal experience as well.
mm.
But I do believe it's deep in there. It's in all of us. One could even say it's our soul, you know? It's something in all of us that's pulling toward goodness. And I think that is touching upon the idea of duty. I think our duty is to create our, whenever, however it comes about in our life, uh, inherent goodness, a sense of service, one could say, in one way or the other. I think it's in all of us. Yeah.
Is your show service?
Yeah, I like to think so. I mean, I don't do it for service. I don't do it because, like, I am the servant. Look at me. But I have to recognize and be realistic that, yeah, this is, I think, some kind of service to humanity. Hopefully, I don't do it as a disservice.
And if you are, you want a pay raise, right?
Yeah. 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 So, yeah, I mean, but also, I don't think you have to create a podcast in order to serve. I think we all serve in the little moments, right? We
Mm,
all
hmm
serve in
hmm
all of our, in however life appears, in whatever circumstance, whatever our karma yields, we serve. And it's hard to say, but I think in a general term that, yeah, like duty leads to service.
So then would there be people, I've already said my opinion on this, but would you feel that there's people who aren't serving and aren't doing their duty?
Yeah, sadly, I think so. That's
Mm.
okay. That's
Why? Why is that okay?
I just I think it's just
Uh,
part of forgiving that. Well, okay. I don't think it's okay in the grand scheme of things. I think we should all be serving God,
mm, mm.
but we got to forgive people for they do not know, as Jesus said on the
Ah,
cross.
okay,
Forgive them,
okay.
Father, because it's out of ignorance, because we don't know that we have a duty,
Ah, okay. Fair. That's a good answer.
right? It's like, how can I judge anybody? Because I was on that. I was on that. I was an atheist. I was watching Game of Thrones and playing video games and getting drunk. So how can I not forgive others that are
Yeah.
also lost in the sauce?
Do
Right?
you feel it's your duty to help them not make the mistakes you made?
Yeah, because I would want that back, back
Yeah.
when I was caught in the ignorance, you could say, I would want guidance. Right? I
I
would
used
want that.
I used to say I was a very uh I I was a very arrogant punk. I describe myself as an arrogant young punk
I feel that.
who knew everything at age
Oh
22.
yeah. Oh yeah, man, you're preaching to the choir.
I'm sure I am. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the people that I found to help lead the way were the ancient sages. Like I said, the
Mm,
Upanishads, the Gita, the old classical Dharma. So if
mm,
I can not be that a beacon, if I
mm,
am, that's cool. I'm not claiming I am, but if I can at least show what helped me, that's
mm,
what I feel
mm,
is my service, right?
mm.
Show like if I'm not doing it for you, then go read the Upanishads, the
Yeah.
Gita, listen to some talks by Nisargadatta or Ramana
Yeah.
Maharshi, whatever it is, Ram Dass. Go find those guys that helped me. That's what I feel as though is the least that I can do in this life, man, because it's helped
Mm,
me so much. So
mm.
it's almost obligatory. Like, do you feel that in your life? Do you feel like that? I mean, yeah, we talked about duty, but do you feel like you can't help but talk about this stuff?
What else is there to talk about?
Exactly. That's what I say. Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I remember, so my parents, I figure you probably come from the same very American white,
yeah,
background.
yep.
Um, nothing too crazy, my father was an engineer, my mom was a housewife.
Hmm.
And very, very basic. My parents always said, don't talk about religion, politics, it's probably a few other things, and knowing me and how cocky I was, I probably would be like, so I'm supposed to talk about the weather?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
The Red
well,
Sox.
it's sunny. Well, that's the conversation, folks.
Yeah.
Like, so you basically, I was taught to ignore anything interesting.
Mm.
And I remember once I'm visiting a friend of mine, and this old guy came in overall, it's very stereotypical sort of country guy. And he said the same thing. He goes, "Yep, I never talk about any of these things." Okay. He literally sat there, and for 5 minutes, we just sort of looked at each other. What the hell were we going to talk about? I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, this is stupid. Like you got rid of all the good topics. And
Yeah.
I might have brought up like, so read any good books lately? Nope, I don't read. Okay. So what music do you like?
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, So it's like, no, yeah, I talk about this stuff all the time. Not all the time. I don't go to work and go, hey, guess what, guys?
Yeah.
I got
Can't
some,
be like that. Yeah.
and if I meet someone who doesn't give a shit, that's fine with me. Or if we want to sit and talk about Megadeth for 3 hours, I am more than happy to talk about Megadeth for 3 hours. Trust me,
Hmm.
I really am. You want to discuss Johnny Cash's best albums? We can do that too, and I'll be totally happy.
Yeah.
Or actually above me is that I'm a big fan of Ayn Rand. You can see the big thick books right here. If you want to talk about those books, great. I'm happy to do these things. But religion for me encompasses everything.
Hmm.
It's not like right now I'm religious. Right now I'm reading Ayn Rand. Right now I'm a bass player. It's not three separate things.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. It all
when I'm
relates.
when I'm playing my bass, if I'm really grooving, I'm in a zone that is almost spiritual.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to achieve something. I'm trying to play something, which is I'm trying to let my inner voice speak through four strings.
Mm.
Which is digging into myself, which is what I do with religion. I'm trying to dig into myself to
Yeah.
let that inner voice speak.
Hmm.
So for me, I don't separate. It's not a separate topic. It's all together.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm gonna talk about it with the right person. I'm happy to talk about it with anyone. And if someone wants to sit and talk about Christianity, we can do that.
Hmm.
Or whatever. I've had amazing. I had a couple months ago. I had lunch with a friend of mine. He is a Christian pastor in town, and he is super famous for being the devil because every week he protests Planned Parenthood. He has a big sign. He protests, and that's his thing. He just hates abortion, and that's pretty much all he does. And he's gotten in trouble with the cops. We're
Oh.
about the same age, but he's the most down to earth guy you'd ever meet. And he protests right outside of my office. So every morning I'm going to work, and once a week I'm seeing him. So I just start talking to him. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with his viewpoints. I don't agree with anything, but I just wanted to talk to him because he's a human being, and I wanted
Yeah.
to learn about him. And there was some. He was protesting with over the summer some Knights of Columbus folks. So I walked up to one of them one day and I said, I have a question to ask you. And they kind of get, what are you going to ask me? And I go, would you please explain to me what you guys do in the Knights of Columbus? Because I've never met someone who was in the organization. And he goes, what? And I said, what do you do? And he just started rolling out. It was the best conversation,
Uh-huh.
there were, and I like doing that. And I had lunch with this Christian pastor. Eventually, we've been friends for years now. I was like, oh, let's just hang out and do lunch, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
he came into lunch and he brought an old Bible and he put it down on the thing and he goes, I never go anywhere without this. And he had duct tape all over it. And I was joking with him, I'll buy you some duct tape for Christmas because it looks like it's wearing thin. But you know what? That's okay. You know, we can discuss something. He has a belief and I'm fascinated by it and I
Yeah.
want to learn. And I don't care if I don't believe in hell or I don't believe in Jesus and he doesn't believe in Krishna. Doesn't matter. You know, we're just grooving. And that's just like,
True.
you
Yeah.
know, we're like two musicians playing music
Yes.
together. I don't
Yes.
care if you can riff to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, so
Hmm.
that's just it. I talk about it. I'm happy with it. You know, it's a part
Yeah,
of my
man.
life. And if whatever, but it is life. That's you mentioned earlier. You in passing, you said Hinduism, Sanatana Dharma may not necessarily be a religion, and a lot of people argue that it's not. It's a way of life, and that's a discussion on its own.
Yeah.
But if it is a way of life, if we do say no, it's not a religion, an organized religion, it's more of a way of life, then in that case, there is no barriers. It's going to be something that's with us
Yes.
always. It's just a who we are and part of us. Where it's not a just Sunday morning or just
Mm.
on this holiday. If it's a way of life, it is truly a way of life,
Amen. Amen.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
I gotta use the bathroom, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. This is good though. I want to keep on this topic, so let's stay on the topic of the power of
if you want
conversation.
to take a break, you go
Yeah,
take a break.
let's take a quick break because it's a little distracting. Too much tea. We'll be right back, everybody. Quick
Okay.
intermission. A second.
We are fine with that. I'll just sit here and riff and look at my phone and thank everyone for watching this if he doesn't edit it out. Um, I'm going to take a photograph right now and let someone. Oh my gosh. I used to miss that.
Okay,
Oh, there he is.
so we're back. Yeah, man. I feel a lot better now. This is a good talk. So we've been going here for a little while here, but I think we're on a good
Um,
groove.
I have nothing else to do today. If you want to keep talking, you can keep talking. If you want to
Yeah,
end, you can end. I really don't mind.
I think we're on a good note.
I'm
This is
fine
good.
with it. I honestly have no plans.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to, be courteous because
Oh, yeah,
some
no, no,
people
no.
sometimes I'm in conversation like, hey, I gotta go, man. I'm like, oh,
So
all right, I didn't know.
no, 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 that's fine. I actually used to do podcast, not YouTube, but an actual audio only podcast doing interviews with musicians.
Oh, wow.
I did it for about 50 episodes and it just became so much work and scheduling. I was just like, I can't, because I was really trying to ask questions to the musicians that they hadn't been asked before.
Yeah.
And I had someone describe my show as getting into the person under the persona.
Mm.
So I was really trying to find stuff to get to the human, not the entertainer.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a lot of work. So I gave it
Yeah.
up. But I interviewed do you know who Sophie B. Hawkins is?
No,
Damn, I wish I was your lover, rock you to the end of time.
that sounds
1980s.
familiar. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's sort of like this lesbian idol who I had a crush on for a while. Anyways, and she was really popular. Damn, I wish I was your lover. Big hit on MTV. And I interviewed her and we ended up talking about poetry and theater, not her music at all. because she was taking a theater class. And it was like, and everyone listened to this interview and went, wow, that was really great. Like, unlike any other interview we've heard by her. I interviewed, let's see, Graham Bonnet of the band Rainbow and Alcatraz, lots of little musicians. Rango, who's a famous guitarist in Seattle, one of the members of Lizzie Borden, some members of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and I was always doing interviews. But I remember one of my interviews was with John Wetton of the band Asia and Roxy Music, and I was told I had 20 minutes. You know those interviews, and you're like, you got 20 minutes. You know, and I'm talking to this iconic prog rock bassist from Family and Roxy Music and Asia and all these other groups from, you know, from the 70s, and he was doing it in his house over Skype. And I'm trying to throw out questions as fast as possible, and I couldn't respond necessarily because I had to get to my question because I have 20 minutes. And then at one point he says to me, my piano tuner's here. I got to let him in right now. But you know what? I'll give you a couple more minutes. So wait till I come back and then we'll keep talking. And I swear that last sort of 5 minutes he gave me was like the best, because he was like, yeah, just keep going. I interrupted you and we're having a good time. And finally I was able to just relax.
Yeah.
So I've been in a situation where you're on a clock and it can be really tough, but I've been very open with you and been like, let's just, I don't care. I riff. I don't, you know, I'm sitting here. It's a very warm day. I've got a fan. I've got my water. Unless I sweat to death and I'm like the wicked witch of the, you know, what Wizard of Oz, unless that happens and I melt, call 911, call my girlfriend, and then the show's over. But otherwise,
we go to the death.
I'm fine with this. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay. So
I
resume.
Well,
I appreciate that. I really do. Because I feel like that yields the best conversations, is being able to just be free and open, like an improv.
And I prefer conversations over Q&A because they're just very stressful when you're like trying to ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
And then someone then says something, you're like, you don't respond to that. Then you're to the next question.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, just talk.
Just hang out.
Or then you make, then there's potential times where you really make a fool of yourself and you don't know what you're doing. So I'm going to tell this music story. Music's a big thing with me, like religion. So I'm always bringing up music. I listened to this interview with this guitar player, and there's just two women. They're like, oh my God, you're the greatest guitar player ever. And you're so great. We loved all the guitar playing you did on this one album and all the songs. And they're like, this song was so good. And that solo was so good. And that solo was so good. Well, I know this guitar player. I've met him and I've read about him and I've sort of done some research on him. He wasn't on the album. He was on one song that was pre-recorded a couple years earlier that had been copied over, and he played rhythm guitar. And then he was touring with I think it was Doro, the Queen of Heavy Metal. So he's not on any of the songs, but yet these girls were going on like, oh, you're solo here and you're solo here. And you could just hear the tone of his voice going, oh, okay. And like the first 5 minutes of the interview was great. And then they got to this part. And then the rest of it, his answers went from really good answers to just one word, like, oh, yes. Okay, I'm glad you like that. Because he realized they didn't have a clue. It was like, and I'm listening to this going, I will not, this is really, they have no idea how embarrassing this is. Like, oh my God. It's like, you don't even know about this person who you think is this great guitar player. You don't even know that he's not on the album. And the liner notes, if you have the CD, actually say he's not on the album along with, and it was like, oh shit. So I have been all around and I've seen it all around.
Yeah, man.
And I've been there myself doing stuff.
We've probably come to find, right, that conversation, especially long form conversation, is an art form. At least I have.
It was very much so. There's YouTube channels dedicated to how to make that happen.
What do you mean?
Oh, there's tons of YouTube channels about how to have a conversation.
Oh, I see.
And how to I was watching one the other day, believe it or not, it was on Joe Rogan and showing why his interviews are very successful and resonate with people, and why he can sit and talk to people who seemingly disagree with him 100% or that he has nothing in common with. I actually don't watch Joe Rogan that much. Pretty much never. News
He's
radio.
good though.
Oh no,
He's
I
good.
watched him on news radio, and I watched an interview with someone who I'm interested in. I might watch, but I don't watch it for him. But it was giving all these little hints about how to respond to someone, how to talk to someone, how to do stuff. So even if you don't connect with that person, you can have a great conversation. So
Yeah.
there's literally YouTube channels teaching you how to talk, because this goes back to what we were talking about a while ago, or so a few things like people, like we don't know, society puts us into this trap, when we were talking about AI, and we're living in the when we're not thinking,
Mm,
and part of that shutting off our brains and not thinking and not being ourselves is we've lost some art of communication.
yes.
People really, it's hard to talk to people,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe just get too old like you and I and we stop giving a shit, but but it's like, it can be really hard, and
Yeah.
a lot of people, they don't actually know how to talk,
Yeah.
you
It's a
know.
skill and an art for
Yeah,
sure.
and I fail all the time because you can see how much I talk, and I talk to someone, they think I'm not listening when in reality my brain is trying to process things. And my girlfriend will tell you I think out loud.
Mm,
And so she was here and I were talking this morning about something, and she goes, "Yes, but I'm saying this." I said, "No, I know what you're saying. I'm just sort of giving my point of view out loud." So I've got it. It's just that, so it's finding how we communicate.
yeah.
But but some people they just don't know how
Mm-hmm.
to communicate. They just really don't know how to connect with people.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing.
Yeah. Just like any skill, it takes time and you have to
Yeah.
actually just expose yourself to doing it. Because if you don't have conversation and most of your interaction, say, is over text or
Oh,
quick, quick hits with people and you're not talking about anything substantial, you're you're just obviously not going to be able to do it. If
I think,
anybody watches, let me just say this real quick. If anybody
yeah,
watches my old stuff, I actually like cringe at them. I'm like, oh my God, you were so bad. You're just like you didn't know what you're doing. I keep it up just because,
yeah,
right? But
I
it's
got
like
it.
it really takes time to hone in on how to have a good conversation with
Yeah,
someone. And
yeah.
the thing is, everyone's different. So it's
Oh,
the skill is being able to
mm,
hone in on that skill, but with different characters, you could say. My conversation and the whole vibe is going to be different with
oh
the
yeah.
podcast that I do tomorrow, but I still have to hone in on that same, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I have to play the same tune. I have to do, because if this is like in terms of music, this is like playing an instrument. This is just like any other skill. I have to utilize my strengths in that same skill, but in a different playing field in a way,
Mhm.
right? With a different person. It's the same game, but a different way to play the game. So yeah, man, I don't know if I explained it the best way there, but it is like
I
it's
don't know.
a ever evolving skill I've come to find, and also very, very powerful for self-development. But I know you're gonna say something, so go
So
ahead.
here's some sheet music for a song. You and I are going to jam on this chord progression, and we're going to play something. Then tomorrow I'm going to jam with somebody else on this exact same song.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
both you and I want to entertain the audience, and I want to do it with this other person. Now you play guitar, the other person plays xylophone.
Yeah.
That's really what you're doing. It's like a
Hmm.
jazz thing, It's like we're gonna play that. We're gonna play you and doing with me. We're doing the song. You're gonna do it with somebody else, but I play upright bass. They play xylophone.
Yeah. Yeah.
This really it is. And but we want to entertain the audience, and both you want to groove with me and have that great thing. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. You also want to have it with somebody else,
Yeah.
people you've never met before.
Well, let me ask you this one, man. Why um do you value conversation so much? And why do you think it's so important to have as a facet in our life in terms of growth or in terms of just being happy? Like, what is it about conversation, no matter who it's with? What is it about conversation that you just resonate with?
Well, oh man, you asked. That's a good. It's so. There's two answers for me personally for that. I'm going to give the cliched answer first.
Okay.
I'm a Gemini, and supposedly Geminis are word people.
Okay.
That's the cliched answer. I have literally always in my life said I am a word man. I love words. I'm not great on foreign languages so much, but I love literature. I love reading. I anything that's difficult, hard. I love lyrics. Just words to me are fascinating. I write stuff. A lot of it will never be seen. It's just how I express myself. If I'm in a bad mood, I can write something and delete it afterwards. I don't care. I'm just a word guy. So that's sort of the and that's sort of the cliched answer in some way, or the mystic whatever astrological answer. But I'm going to tell you, when I was young, up and through even um, college, my atheist days before I went stupid,
Hmm.
I was super shy.
Hmm.
I hated walking into a room of people. I hated talking to people. To talk to strangers was frightening. I just I didn't talk to people. I didn't know how to talk to people. I wasn't comfortable talking to people. I was curious in the world and I like people, but I couldn't do it. If there was a room full of people, I would, instead of going into the room, I would just leave. I wouldn't even participate in the activity. About 10 years ago, I was invited to a community meeting, some community group. I didn't know anyone there. And they said, "Oh yeah, show up at noon. There'll be lots of other folks here. You won't be the only new person." I went to the building and then circled the block 3 times, wondering if I should go in because there were strangers there, and I was so afraid.
Yeah.
Um, when I got the job at the law firm 9.5 years ago, on my second day at work was our monthly birthday pizza lunch. So everyone gets together. I sat in my office and read a book because I was so afraid to walk into that room with a bunch of people I'd met 24 hours earlier.
Hmm.
I just couldn't do it. I made an excuse like I didn't feel comfortable, but I was afraid. And that was me
Yeah.
growing up. What happened is I am naturally a very verbal person on some level. Um, my family, we'd always talk when my parents and we talk a lot in my house. And I joke that I have relatives who don't actually need anyone else in the room to hold a conversation. They
Oh
just
yeah.
go off. You know what I mean? My grandmother could just go off, and even if you were there, you weren't needed. um, and what I would find is sometimes I would talk to somebody, and then they go, "Oh, that's really interesting. Wait a minute. Do you want to help me out with some project?" Oh, okay. Wow, sounds like fun. I used to do a lot of theater, and I would actually have people come to me and going, "Hey, would you like to be in my show?" I did Fiddler on the Roof for summer stock, and I played the fiddler, but I didn't audition. The director actually came to me and said, "Hey, do you know what? Do you want to be in my show? Oh, we haven't worked together before, but I've known you for years, and we have a good. Do you want to come and do this?" And I would have opportunities like that single-handedly develop because I was communicative.
Yeah.
And God, I remember there was one time I went to this jazz concert. I had gotten free tickets because they were being given away at the radio station on my campus, but no one had called in for the tickets. And the head of the radio station saw me and he goes, "Hey, you and I, we talk to each other when we go and do this jazz night at this local coffee house. You know who I am?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know, whatever." And he goes, "What are you doing tonight?" I said, "Not why." And he goes, "Well, I got 2 tickets. Why don't you grab a girl and go to the show?" I got nothing to do with him. And I know you. So, I'd have opportunities like this. And eventually I started figuring out that if I open my mouth, life is better.
Yep.
And people who were very shy, and there's nothing wrong with being shy, I would often have them go like, "Oh, I'm so afraid." And, "Oh, I wanted to do that, but I should have said something." I hate regret. I
Mm.
refuse to regret things. If I make my decision, I'm going to live with it. I don't like regret at all. And I remember growing up going, "Oh, I wish. Oh, I should have. Why didn't I?"
Yeah.
So much regret. And that wears you down. I know people who just their whole lives are destroyed because of what they didn't do. So I just started training myself to speak. And now I say anything and I don't care. And I've had friends of mine, they say to me, "Aren't you worried about what people are going to think?" And I go, "Well, the person laughed at my joke. So no." And if they didn't laugh at my joke, we had a great conversation. So no. And they're like, "Well, but your joke didn't make sense." I'm like, It doesn't have to make sense. I'm just looking for the interaction, and we have a good,
That's
I
it.
stopped caring. I stopped caring about what people think. And like a high schooler does, I stopped being a high schooler and started just opening up. And now I go out and I'm the guy that goes to the courthouse and chokes with the security guards there who are just looking at me going, really? Really? I'm like, I'm trying to make your day interesting. Who else is going to come in here and tell your jokes? you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And now I just do this to everyone because it makes life better. So that's
Yeah.
my thing of if talking like I like communicating because it makes my life better. It makes me happy. It makes your life better. You have a good time. There's the clerk at the courthouse because I go there for work to give stuff to the courthouse. She knows me, and I saw her the other week, and she's like, because she moved to a different job, and she's like, "Oh yeah, no one tells me jokes like you did when you used to come in." She's like, "I miss it. It's just business talk all day long, but you used to come in and we'd have a great conversation about music." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
why not?
Mm-hmm.
Why not?"
Why not?
Communicating is fun, and I didn't always do it, but now I'm like,
Yeah,
I wish I had.
I know.
So that's my thing with communication,
Yeah, I get it. The power of the word. It's how
Mm,
we create our reality. It's how we carve out our little essence of creativity that we've
yeah,
been granted. It's through the word.
yeah. That's totally my oh
It's kind of like who we are, as in like an individual aspect. I see you, and I hear you. And when I can close my eyes and I hear your voice.
uh,
You're still there. And I hear like, how do I put this? It's like your voice is more related to your soul, if you want to call it soul, or your sense of who you are deep down. It's really related to the voice, right? It's like our body is an apparatus for the voice, it seems, right? It's like we carry ourself through our voice. If we don't have our voice, if you're mute, you have not a lot of power. You still have power. We still can conduct. We still have hands.
yeah.
We still have a mind, but you lose so much power without your voice, and you gain it with your voice.
Mm. So it's interesting. I'll relay something from my childhood. I don't talk about this a lot because it's like I'm a little embarrassed, but whatever. When I was young, I said I was shy, but I also didn't really like myself.
Yeah.
I was a geeky kid. I did a lot of stupid shit like everybody else,
Hmm.
drinking, whatever, partying, wasting time. Because I was trying to find myself in an atmosphere that was teaching me not to be me, but to just go along with the crowd.
Hmm.
And I don't do that very well. I'm a lone wolf. I don't go along with the crowd. It's just my natural. I can't. But I was being put into this little box,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get a job, have a family, grow up, you'll work yourself up in the company, end of story sort of thing. And I'm like, no. um, and I used to do a lot of theater, and I just kind of I stumped. My mother enrolled me when I was young, as a way to get me out of the house so she could breathe because
Hmm.
I was a handful. And I just continued it through high school and then college and doing community theater. And then I've done all sorts of things, including the last thing I really did of that I'm proud of was directing off Broadway.
Hmm.
Um, and then I've done some other stuff acting, and I haven't done it in years though. I don't know if I'll ever do it again. But I didn't like myself. And so I would go for this theater thing in high school audition where I could play a character who wasn't me. All eyes were on this character, and hopefully the character was well liked because that I was jealous. I didn't like myself. So for so many weeks, I could be somebody else.
Hmm.
Okay. I'm connecting up to your voice thing. And I would often play characters. I'm not the leading man type. I'm the funny guy who comes on, or I'm the quirky character or whatever. In high school, I always got cast as old men. I'd gray my hair up, whatever. Um, but I would always play sort of bigger than life stereotypes, whatever. And I could be somebody else. And I always felt during those times better about my life. Well, one of the first things I would do whenever I got a part is I would always try to change my voice. For
Hmm.
everything I did, I didn't want my voice. Not that I have the greatest voice in the world. I speak at the top of my range. I have a weird way of talking. Um, but I would change it. Maybe it's going to be a little bit rougher. Maybe I'm going to do something else. Or there was one character where I just stuttered for the whole thing. And my director asked me, how can you do that for like 10 minutes on stage? She was really impressed. And I would always try to change the voice, because for me, I felt if I use my own voice, then that's me, but I'm trying to reflect somebody else. And
Yeah.
as you just said, that voice is kind of who we are. It's part
Yeah.
of who we are, for better or for worse. But that was always one of the first things, was I had to get that voice and find that voice. And once I found the character's voice,
Mm.
then I could find the rest of the character,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And even if the character didn't have any lines, I said I played Fiddler on the Roof, and I just sang and danced and moved around, and I didn't have any lines,
But you
but
knew the voice.
I still found a voice for that character. So if the director had said, okay, Fiddler, you're going to say this line, I could do it.
That's
You know?
interesting. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. And then maybe if you look at this as the divine play of Leela, you could translate
Mm-hmm.
that into finding your own voice, your own innate voice. We all do have a voice.
And also coming to know that that innate voice you have, maybe it's not the voice you want, you
True.
know? I'd much rather sound like Cary Grant, or, or he's got a great voice and the way he talks, or I love Matthew McConaughey. Dude,
Yeah.
I would love to have, or,
Yeah.
or who doesn't want to be Al Pacino,
Yeah, right.
yeah, whatever.
Hmm.
But that's not I don't have that voice.
No, you have to honor your
I
voice, your
have to,
God-given
I
voice.
kind of have to come to grips with what I got and
Yeah.
the way I talk. And that's part of the learning hurdle too. That's part of the, the growth that we have to deal with, that acceptance of just, well, this is me.
Yeah.
I can change some things about it, but there's other things that are just going to happen,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And that's probably, once we hit that hurdle and we go beyond that, that's really where life sort of just, then it's just like, oof,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't want to say, oh, now you have achieved enlightenment, but that is really that is a tremendous point where we just come and say, hey, this is it. I got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's when one can flourish. And
Yeah.
the expression of the human being is when you sort of surrender to the circumstances that you've been given. You surrender to, oh, I'm not Matthew McConaughey, but I'm Gary Haskins.
Yeah. And I can just live with this. And then you relax.
Yeah. Weight off your shoulders. Like, oh, I don't have to be like that or like this. I
Yeah.
don't have to be like Buddha or Jesus.
Yeah.
Be your own Buddha,
Yeah.
essentially.
I said on a recent podcast, I was talking about Andrew Tate, and there was a chat going on while I was doing it with a bunch of young men for tuning in, which was really awesome. And because I don't have that happen a lot, and they were asking me different questions, and so it was really focused on young men, and I was talking about be yourself. And I know it's hard, and I know life sucks, but go with yourself. Don't try to be Andrew Tate, because you're not.
Hmm.
And whether you like him or not doesn't matter. Don't try to be Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate, because you're not. It will backfire. You have to if you want to be him, you have to take him and turn him into something that is you. And you can incorporate things of people. We all have incorporated our family or friends or people we like, but we have to make it ourselves. But I ended my show with one bit of advice. I said, and I'll tell you right now, my girlfriend teased me about that. And when she sees this, she's going to tease me again. I said, here's my real secret. If you want to know how to get in touch with yourself, I said, wear sexy underwear.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I wasn't talking to women in this show. I said, guys, make your shorts, make them sexy shorts, because you're going to feel good about yourself if you're wearing sexy shorts. And then if you feel good about yourself, your confidence is going to lift up and your self-esteem is going to lift up. And when that confidence lifts up, suddenly the weight of the world is not on your shoulders. Suddenly you don't feel like a horrible person, and you're just going to relax, and things will then, you'll be more receptive to stuff.
Hmm.
You'll be more open to stuff. And yes, maybe so-and-so won't like you. And maybe that redheaded chick is going to say no on the date to you. But if you're a little more confident, you're going to go, the brunette over here, I'm going to ask her now because I don't care about who. Yep, you said no, fine, I'm going to go over here.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
if you're not feeling confident about yourself and you're feeling low, you're going, oh, why is she saying that? I really was hoping my life is miserable.
Hmm.
I knew a guy who went after a girl for 6 months and she said no on the first date. She said no on she said no to he still went after her for 6 months. And then he wondered why she wasn't interested. I'm like, move on, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's other. So I said, wear sexy underwear. And I say, I didn't say this on the show, but I said, well, think about some woman who you really like. Picture a woman in your head, Gary. Picture a woman in your head who's very sexy, okay? And she's wearing sexy lingerie. Because typically women do wear sexy lingerie, it's a
Hmm.
feminine thing. So, and you could picture maybe a movie star you like, or if you have a crush on someone you like, you picture your crush or whatever in the sexy lingerie. This woman's going to come out and she's going to look like this and she's going to go, you want some of this? Whatever. Women who are wearing sexy underwear, lingerie, pretty confident. You never see a woman in sexy lingerie going, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know about myself.
Okay.
Oh,
I get it now. Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
you know, that's why I say that's how it is. You build that confidence,
Inner confidence. Yeah.
inner confidence. And
Amen.
sometimes you have to put on something to help you get there. It's a tool,
Yeah.
but tools are fine.
Hmm.
I mean, if I didn't have my glasses, I wouldn't be able to see you. Tools
Hmm.
are fine. And
Yeah.
now I can see you. I feel comfortable. I'm not squinting, and we move on. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Well said. What do you have for recommendations in order to not only wear good underwear, but do you have any practices, maybe yogic practices for us to be able to become
So I knew you
self-confident?
were going to ask that. I knew you were going to ask
We're
that. And it's
synced
so
up.
funny. So it's really interesting. Maybe because I listened to your interview with Rahul Singh, the bearded mystic, and it was really, really cool. And I like
Hmm.
him. He's a cool guy, and
Oh yeah.
and we're friends now. And he was talking about that. And you asked him that question. So there's two answers to that question for me. I think a lot of people ask that question. We're not rebuilding the world here,
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel,
Hmm.
you know. And there a lot of people would then answer, well, you should do yoga. Meditation is good. Eat a vegetarian diet. Don't watch 6 hours of pornography, et cetera, et cetera. That's, I think, the answer most of us are going to give because that's all good advice. But I have a little problem with that type of answer.
Hmm.
It is easy for you, Gary, to do yoga, okay, where you're living and with your life and you did it and it's fine. I have a friend um, in Colorado who is a Mormon and he doesn't really go. He's autistic and he's declared that because he's autistic, going to the temple is just too much for him. When in reality, he hates it and doesn't believe it. And in secret, he reads anti-Mormon books and revealing stories. It's literally one of those hiding the comic book inside another book.
Wow.
And so his mom still helps him out with stuff, and his career prospects aren't so good. And he's kind of an incel type person. He fits the stereotype.
Okay.
But his mom will come over, and he has books. I think he's kind of getting into progressive Christianity now, but he's been into Hinduism and stuff. He hides the books so his mother won't see him.
Mm.
Um, you can't see this, but there's one row of books here and there's actually a row behind it. So that's what he does. He hides stuff because he goes, if she ever knew, she'd drag me to the temple every week
Hmm.
and she might cut off my funding and I wouldn't be able to pay my rent.
Mm.
So for
Yeah.
someone like him, and he's like in his 30s now, I really feel bad for him. And he had cancer for a bit too. So she was helping him. So for someone like him, it's not so easy to just go, hey, do yoga and eat a vegetarian diet and do
And
all this
read the
stuff
Gita.
and read the Gita. It's not so easy.
Yeah.
I knew this girl for a while, young girl. She was in Saudi Arabia and her husband was worked part of the time out of the country and then was sometimes with her, and he was Muslim and she's Muslim. And she's like, yeah, I can't tell anybody that I read tarot cards. I can't do that. And I can't tell anyone that I read the Gita. I can't actually tell anybody.
Hmm.
She can't go and take a yoga class.
Yeah.
So, and if she suddenly went, oh, I'm going to eat a vegetarian diet now, Really? Why? Why? So I don't think there is necessarily, to get back to your question, when we give an answer like just do this or just do this to find ourselves,
Mm,
it's not a universal.
yeah.
And my belief is if all of us in the world have our own path and our own lives, and we're all, every man and woman is a star, if we're all leading our own way, then the way we get there also has to be somewhat unique.
Yeah.
Because if we all are going to do the exact same thing, but yet at the end of it, we're going to be individuals. I
Mm,
mean, that's what our school system does in America. They want us all to follow the same path and then come out the same because that's the drone mentality that society wants.
yeah.
But a lot of us are like, no. And so we all come at different things and we leave, and that's the wondrous diversity of life. So my answer to your question is very long, but um, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think the way we find what works for us is we have to start listening to ourselves.
Hmm.
So Rahul, in an interview you did, um, he actually said it was a great piece of advice. He said every hour, listen to yourself for like a minute, just be silent. I thought, oh, that's a really great, listen to yourself. I have a friend who I went to high school with, and he goes, I cannot be alone in a room because then I hear my own thoughts.
Yeah.
And he go, I don't want to, I don't mean. So he has a big family. He's involved in his church. He has a job. He's never alone. I dated this girl who was never alone. And I remember once she calls me, she goes, can you do something tonight? I'm like, no, I'm like sick in bed with a migraine. And she told me later, she goes, oh my God, I had dinner and there was nobody else there. I can't remember the last time I ate dinner alone. Wow. And she literally was like, wow, what an experience that was. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that shouldn't be the wow experience.
Yeah.
But you're building walls between yourself and, well, yourself kind of, you're building walls to try to not hear yourself.
Mm,
It's like, no, that being is sitting alone and having dinner should be normal. And
yeah.
then sometimes people come into it. But I think so. I think the big thing is not necessarily that we have this list of things we should do, but that we should listen to ourselves,
Hmm.
just listen to ourselves, and sometimes shut off the TV, shut
Oh
off the
yeah.
computer, which we talked about already.
Yeah.
Shut off this. Don't spend all day on X and Facebook and Instagram and every other thing. My girlfriend and I are marathon runners, and I joke that I need and my iPod playing with something, because otherwise I run arguments with my mother in my head.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to do that. So I shut off. But there's other times where like I'm mulling over something at work, or I'm trying to do something, or maybe I'm working on YouTube and I'm trying to figure something out. Or maybe her and I just have something going on in our life and we've got to figure it out. We sold our second car recently, and we were trying to figure out how to make that happen. And there was just it needed some repairs, which we didn't want to do. So it was like, how do we sell a car that needs to be fixed? So I would go out and not have my earphone on, just so I could be, okay, I'm going to go out running for 3 miles, and it's going to be my thinking time. And that's a half hour, you know, but I don't think we do that enough.
Yeah.
That's
Amen.
that is my thing. We get in our cars, we drive to work. What's the first thing we do? We turn on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you work where I work, the parking lot is literally, let's see, 8 feet away. So you walk from the fourth floor to the parking lot, 8 feet to my building, and then go up the elevator 4 floors.
Hmm.
Takes it
Hmm.
takes you 2 minutes. It's not a lot of thinking time,
No.
you know.
Yeah. Constant
So,
stimulation. That's the world we're
uh-huh.
in. So
That
you're
is
saying just disconnect from the constant stimulation.
you
Slow
don't have
down.
to you don't have to become an Amish person.
Yeah.
Gandhi, actually, he was really in, like, that was a big thing for him, is separate yourself out from that. He was I mentioned that earlier, he was anti-technology and
Yeah.
didn't really want that. He wanted you to separate out. I'm not advocating that type of extreme living. There
Hmm.
are some people who are meant to be a monk or a nun or live, and I said most of us aren't, and I don't think the world would function if we all became Amish.
Hmm.
Um, we don't have to get back to a world where we're all plowing and living in the country. No, I'm not into that agrarian world. I'm very happy with my computer and my phone, and I don't want
Yeah.
to give it up. And I like my clothing that doesn't wrinkle because it's well made, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not into that. But I think we do need to listen to ourselves more and become more aware of ourselves.
Yeah.
I know so many people who lack so much self-awareness. It's like, wow, how do you function in the world? Because you have no idea what comes out of your mouth. You have no idea how much people just can't stand you, or how you're just a hypocritical, horrible person. Like you just don't get it. Like a drug addict on the street doesn't get it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think if we started just listening, then so much would just radically change. Just
Yeah.
radically change. And you don't even have to do your yoga. And then you might want to do yoga. Maybe then you feel called. Okay, I want to do yoga. Or I a couple of times have gone into Tai Chi. I've practiced that both online, and then also I went to classes for a while. I was learning Tai Chi, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. I feel it. Um, and you know, you then you'll start gravitating to other things, or maybe you want to be a vegetarian, or maybe I don't know, whatever. You want to meditate. I'm a horrible meditator. I'll tell you that right now. I don't do it very well. I talk
Yeah.
too much.
Uh-huh.
So, but I found that I can't, if I just have to sit here and I practice Zen, getting up at 4 o'clock where you're doing this for 2 hours, it's not my thing. But I discovered as I began listening to myself, and I liked mantra chanting.
Yeah.
So if I have to go, Om Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Om Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama 108 times, that's cool. I get off on that. You know, that works for me because it's words and it works with my love of words, and then it tones my thoughts down. That's perfect. Actually, I'll go out running, and I've been known to chant stuff. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare, you know, I'll chant stuff, and that works for me. So then I think you might gravitate to stuff. But
Hmm.
I'm going to echo what Rahul said. Anyone watching this should watch that show. It was a great interview with a really awesome
Appreciate
guy known
it.
as the Bearded Mystic. He's just a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just listen to yourself. That is my one bit of advice.
Yeah. I like that a lot,
So,
man.
yeah.
Hmm. Name of the game is find quiet time, right? It doesn't have to be formal meditation, is what
Yeah,
you're
no,
saying.
no, not in the
Just
least.
a little bit less of the outside, a little more of the inside,
And
right?
then if you want to meditate, then if you want to do, yes, go with
Yeah.
it. But you don't even know if you want to do those things if you're not listening to yourself,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You can argue, fine, I'm fine with that. But my instincts say that how do you know you want to meditate if you don't even know you?
I
Like
think
you,
yeah. What were you gonna say?
like you got into yoga for something in you pushed you to yoga, right?
Yeah, it was just general self-improvement. It was actually exercise. It was more so like
Oh,
a physical thing.
yeah.
But
Well, that's the way yoga is in the West.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then I got into really what yoga was about.
Oh, the real yoga.
Yeah, the real yoga. Yeah, not the American yoga. And I
No,
think it all
there's a
starts with slowing down the body, right?
yeah.
Slowing down the body in one way or the other. And we all have that luxury to be able to do so, no matter our circumstance. We all have the ability to just turn off the TV, turn off your phone for a little bit, right? That's something, it doesn't matter if you are a secret non-Mormon in a Mormon family,
Yeah,
right? Like it doesn't,
yeah,
it's, there's no barrier to entry to finding stillness. We all
yeah,
have bedtime. You can do it
yeah.
when before you go to sleep.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
understand like it's not easy for everybody to do. There's different yogas. There's four
Yep,
different ones,
yep,
as they say in the Gita, as Krishna
yep,
says.
yep.
But it all revolves around, and correct me if I'm wrong, it all revolves around disconnecting from what you think you should do, or what the world tells you should do, or should think, or should be like, or should say, and connecting with that inner voice, that inner, really what you are, the higher self, maybe you could say, connecting with God in whatever way that works for you. Just slowing down the mind stuff and connecting more to the heart stuff, you could say.
Slowing down and disconnecting from the distractions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Endless
pushing
distraction.
those things. Yeah, yeah.
Just
That's
endless.
that's what society does best.
Hmm.
Yeah, pushing away some of those distractions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, man. And the distractions don't disappear. That's the thing. I think we both talked about this. It's like I
Oh
like Game of
God, no.
Thrones. I like
Yeah.
video games still. But I
Yeah.
realize that there's more to that. There's more to life than just the sensual pursuits, you could say, right? There's that duty that's always lurking in the back of my head,
Mm,
right? There's always that duty that I know that I could fall back on, that's within, that I can always listen to. And it actually makes the worldly pursuits even better, right?
mm-hmm,
Like tapping into oneself actually helps me enjoy the temporary, materialistic, hedonistic stuff of the world even more
mm-hmm,
so.
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
so that's the middle way. It's like it doesn't
mm-hmm.
disappear. We don't go live in a cave, but we just find a nice balance, right? It's a nice
Yeah,
balance.
balance. Balance is the key word.
Yeah.
I think that's the key word. I know someone who has no life. 40-year-old woman who just has no life. She doesn't like anything or anyone.
Oh.
And she has real trouble getting a date because as soon as the guy says, "Well, I like to do," no, I don't go out, I don't eat, I don't like this, I don't like that. So all she does is watch TV all the time and movies.
Mm.
And her literal thing is, "Well, I watch the movies all night. I just turn on the TV and that's it until I go to bed because I'm trying to push away the depression."
Yeah.
Which is
Hmm.
really sad. Which is because this is not a stupid woman. She's very smart, but she just didn't develop anything.
Hmm.
And she's like, I just watch TV to get away from the distraction. Whatever's on, I watch. Oof. Now you mentioned Game of Thrones. I do enjoy watching TV. My girlfriend and I just started rewatching Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Hmm.
We've only watched it once, and now we're going to watch it for the second time. And we sit there and we go, oh my God, this is so great. And we discuss things about it. Um, we were watching Star Trek The Next Generation recently and discussing how they never invented body cams. They don't
Yeah.
have them in the future. How many episodes would have been solved instead of them going, well, Captain, we're staying on the planet? No, body
Yeah.
cam. They hadn't invented it. It's so insane.
Yeah.
So we have these really interesting, fun discussions. Next time you watch Star Trek, you'll see they don't have body cams.
There's a lot of that in sci-fi. It's like if only
It's
they
like,
had a smartphone.
really? You didn't invent you have a spaceship, but yet I do more on my phone?
Yeah.
Really?
Hmm.
Like Battlestar Galactica, you have robots, but yet you can't figure out, it's like, are you
Yeah.
crazy? So, but 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 I don't sit and watch Deep Space Nine to stave away my depression.
Exactly.
I don't watch, whatever show. We don't watch that to get rid of the depression. Her and I are active. We do things. So, like, I'm doing the show with you right now. So, if afterwards I want to watch a movie, I don't have a problem with that. I don't need to be going 24/7. It's finding that balance.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't have it. It's
Yeah.
all about the distraction. This whole day would just be watching movie after movie. I'm like, no, no, no. I did this with you. It's very productive. Um, Before you and I were doing this, I was working on my YouTube channel, updating some stuff. Um, I have a book I'm reading that I'll hit later, and I'm doing all this stuff. So then when I have that movie, it's the downtime. It's the time to let my brain relax a little bit. So it's all about balance,
That's it, man. It's
you
all about
know?
balance.
And then that Game of Thrones binging is great. I'm not wasting time in the least, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
Whatever show.
Yeah. Whatever.
Whatever, you
Whatever
know?
thing that the world wants to give us. But
And
yeah.
and then sometimes some of that isn't really, I'm not watching a TV show necessarily for entertainment. There's more going on. When I listen to music, sometimes I'm listening to it as a musician. It's
Yeah.
not purely entertainment. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I have a friend who's mentioned to me maybe doing a Johnny Cash tribute thing, and it's like I don't know if it's going to happen. He has a nice comfort zone and doesn't like to break out of it, and maybe it'll happen. It may just be too hot these days, and we don't want to. We're not motivated.
Hmm.
But I've been listening. I love Johnny, and I've been listening to a lot of. I have, when I go out running, I'll have Johnny playing. Um, and I have a couple biographies about him. So for me, when I'm listening to Johnny Cash, it may look like I'm just enjoying a great musician singing wonderful songs, but actually, I'm listening to that bass line. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. He goes boom, 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 stop, boom, stop, boom. Oh, he's doing it. Oh, and Luther. Oh, interesting. He came. Oh, the bass started on the second. No, that was really interesting. I'm
Yeah.
actually listening to this, learning. So
Yeah.
I'm not just zoning out. I'm actually doing something that then I'll pick up my bass and I'll actually, oh, okay, now let me see if I can boom, 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 boom. I got it now.
Mm.
So it's often these distractions, we can use them They're not just
Exactly.
distractions. They're beneficial. Actually, you see this brown sticker. You can't see it from there, but the brown sticker actually says Johnny Cash on it.
Okay.
That's how much of a fan I am. And
That's cool.
Elvis, which you might have seen every time I flash my phone.
Wow, that's serious. Shout out Elvis.
I love my Elvis.
Shout out Johnny Cash. Yeah. Hmm.
And Johnny's very interesting because I think many of these musicians, they are, and artists and writers, they are living their life, they're doing their thing, and they're in touch with themselves.
Yeah. Hmm.
I mentioned in an email to you, I'm a big fan of Morrissey and Lou Reed. I talked to Lou once after a show. It was me and his mother and his driver, and he put his hand on my shoulder. So I consider this a sacred site now. I'm like, oh my God, Lou Reed touched me. And we had a great conversation that was really good for him. Here's a guy who had one hit, that's Walk on the Wild Side. He did a lot of albums that a fan would know, but nobody else really knows his stuff. And some of it's really weird. He did an album of meditation music, which consists of
Hmm.
on like some weird synthesizer for like 45 minutes. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, why was one of your last albums in your life 45 minutes of a synthesizer? And it was actually music he created because he was into Tai Chi that
Uh,
he did for himself when he did Tai Chi. And later in his career, he would actually have a Tai Chi, or at one point in his career, he actually had his teacher come on tour with him. So while he's up there singing Sweet Jane, his Tai Chi master would be doing something on stage.
wow.
And the master would finish the Tai Chi and then just sit down while the song kept going. And I'm watching this going, oh my God, this is utterly the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Hmm.
And because he was just so doing his thing. And
Hmm.
so many musicians and Morrissey and a lot of these others, you may hate them, you may love them, but they're doing their thing. A famous one would be Ted Nugent. We all know Uncle Ted, but he's always been like this. If you read interviews from the 70s, he's just doing his thing that he's
Yeah.
always done. John Lydon, Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols. He might be a little more drunk than he was used to, or maybe he was more drunk then. But if you listen to interviews from when he was in the Sex Pistols, he literally says the exact same things that he does today. And I know he just put out Public Image. Public Image just put out an album last year where he's ranting on something. And it's like, no, this is the same music he's always done. And so many of these people, they're really in touch with themselves and then they express it in the art. And I admire them greatly, even if I don't like what they do. I'm just really admiring them. And I think a lot of us, though, who are not artists, we don't do that. And we kind of go, oh, well, they're an artist. They're in touch with themselves. Like, yeah, but why can't you be?
Yeah.
Just because you're not an artist making a sculpture or making music, what you don't have any excuse.
Hmm.
They're just creating something that goes out in the world. But maybe you're a chef.
Yes.
Maybe you work at a bakery, and that is your art. Maybe you're
Mm.
an interior decorator.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a YouTuber, and YouTube takes work. Gary, it takes time, and you said your early shows aren't as good, so you had to learn.
Yeah.
Or maybe your technology wasn't as good, so you had to buy a new microphone.
That too.
And you're like, well, which one am I going to get? There's a million of them.
Yeah.
So becomes your art. But I think in society we're like, no, there's artists, and then there's like the rest of us who just drone away. Like, no,
Yeah. We're all the artists.
no, you're all life is your painting, life
Yes.
is your guitar, life is whatever. Why aren't you using it?
Mm.
Why you sleep until noon? I don't see Lou Reed sleep until noon.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
didn't. I don't have time for that. I may not be famous, but I don't have any. I still got things to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well said.
I'm sure there was a question there you asked me, and I totally went off on a music tangent. But oh well.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know. It's good stuff though. I don't remember what I asked. I don't even remember what the thread was,
I
but
mean, if I can bring
yeah.
Lou Reed into a conversation, I'm pretty happy about that.
Shout out Lou Reed as well.
Shout out Lou Reed, Morrissey, and Ted Nugent. It's the first time any of those people have been mentioned on your channel, I guarantee.
100%. Yeah. That's probably the only time. Unless we talk again. I don't think anyone else is gonna bring them up. That's okay though.
I'll have other musicians at that point, I promise.
Yeah, there's something special. I've always resonated with musicians, as in like speaking to them. A lot of my
Yeah.
guests have actually been musicians. There's
Oh,
always
yeah.
like instruments in the background, and
Yeah.
there's just something special about a musician. I think musicians are very innately tapped into themselves. They know that essence
And
of being in the moment. Yeah, because when you're playing music like that, if you want to make good music, you got to be enthralled in the moment with the instrument, you know? So there's some musicians are, I think, just on that wavelength naturally to be in tune with themselves and in tune with their art.
I think also we're also learning as a musician, you're always building your skills up.
Mm,
I think it's an innate part, whether you're a rapper or a bassist or a classical violinist. You're always trying to build your skills and learning. That's part of playing an instrument. No, there's only one Steve Vai and only one Ingmay Malmsteen and only one Joe Satriani. And I think the rest of us are all trying to get there, trying to figure out, well, how does Steve Vai play and sound so freaking amazing, and how does Tim Hansen and Polyphia do all this? We're always learning as musicians and we're always discovering new music. It's just, or if I'm not the best. I wish I was a great lyricist. I'm not. And even though I have like tons of lyrics that I've jotted on my phone and partial lyrics, so that's like something I would love to be able to do better,
mm.
and write some songs and then record something. I've never really been able to take my huge vocabulary, why say 5 words when you can do 20? And then put that into a song lyric, I can't do.
I see.
So every so often, I kind of will look at a YouTube video about like how to write music. And I love rap music, matter of fact. So I'm listening to like the new Kanye or the new Eminem going, okay, now that's really cool. Like I find that fascinating. So that's where I'm learning. And I'm a rockabilly bass player. So like early Elvis, early Johnny Cash slap style. So I'm always working on how does that, building up my hand movement. But there's a lot of things in this world where we're not having to do that. At my job, we've all done this for many years. Many of my staff members have been there for many years, and we're doing the same thing now that we did 15 years ago. It's the same paperwork. And coming home and watching TV doesn't require any brain skills. So I think a lot of us never learn. We kind of stop learning. We don't, and then we learning because, oh, it's so hard. But it's not. But it's like somehow we just don't learn. But musicians, because so much of what we do is always about learning and about practicing, and whether you're writing or playing an instrument, you're always trying to develop your skills out.
Yeah.
That it's, I think for us, so much of, we're natural learners,
Mm.
and we're naturally open. I've only met a couple musicians in my life who refuse to listen to any music. And I wouldn't really call them musicians. I would just call them people who know 3 chords on a guitar and then can't play.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, I don't listen to anything. I'm like, yeah, I can tell. It's like a poet who never reads poetry. Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
Because if you love poetry, you write poetry, you're gonna read poetry.
Mm-hmm.
I like playing bass. I listen to bass players, and there may be certain bass players I really love and certain I don't. And there's certain music styles I like to listen to, but that's fine. But I'm open, and that's what we are. So yeah, these musicians, we are natural learners. We're natural people who are always developing our skills. I mean, all you have to do is ask a guitar player how many pieces of equipment they've bought.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll be like, well, don't ask my wife what the credit card looks like. Because it's like, well, if I get this, that'll take me in this place.
Mm-hmm.
But how many people don't do that?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
That's more. I think it's a lot. Way more than a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Always the student. And more things than just music too.
Yeah, I mean, music is what I do, so it's
Mm-hmm.
how I relate to the world. Everything we built the city on rock and roll is how I see the world. So that's just
Mm-hmm.
my example, but it could be anything. You could have 1,000 different examples for this.
Yeah. Music is a good metaphor though, because you could say everything is a
Exactly.
song. It's all
And
music. It's all the dance here.
and I think we can all relate to music. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
very
us,
true.
it's something relatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At the
Don't
end of the
trust
day,
anyone that doesn't like music.
your life is sad.
You don't like music, man? Come on.
If you don't like music, I had a landlord. I remember when David Bowie died. This is David Bowie. I mean, iconic. Even if you're not a fan, there's probably at least one song of his you like. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
David Bowie died, and my landlord and I were emailing over something, and I said to him, I said, "Oh wow, David Bowie died today," and he literally said to me back, he goes, "I've heard he was a very good musician. I don't listen to music." Now my landlord's what 50-something-year-old New York guy, and I read that line and I went, "My God, oh my God, no wonder you're such a boring old sod."
Uh-huh.
And this guy, this landlord, whenever you'd see him, he kind of looked like Shrek from the
Mm.
movies,
Mm-hmm.
and he would walk like, and he never smiled. I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, and he just had nothing to talk about. You
Yeah.
couldn't converse with him. He was an accountant. It was very stereotypical. I was like, oh my God, yeah, you should listen to music. You should, because you're look at what it's done to you. You've sucked your soul, threw it out the window. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be obsessive like someone like me. That's not necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to even know what you're listening to. But yeah, people don't listen to music. I'm like,
Missing out.
what is wrong with you? You need a life, or you need
Yeah.
drugs, or a
Yeah.
girlfriend or something. You need
Yeah.
something.
You need something, man. You need it. You need something. It's
I
magic.
mean,
It's like the closest thing we have to magic, right? What is mute? Like, what actually is it? It's so human.
well, music is fascinating because in Western music, just Western music, we have a limited number of notes: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. We have a couple flats thrown in, and that's it. That's
Hmm.
all we've got. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And it's like, yet how many songs and styles and ways of expressing ourselves have we created out of this small palette?
Yeah.
Oh, but you have a chord. A basic chord has three notes. It's the triad, the 1, 3, and 5. That's it. Sometimes maybe when you play it, the fifth will come before the first. Well, it's the same three notes, whether you
Hmm.
play them this way or that way.
Hmm.
There's only four strings on this guitar bass. If I add two more strings, you could have a 6-string bass. It's not giving me A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. I'm still limited to these same notes. But it's amazing how much we've created, how many music styles. We get everything from Elvis Presley to Kanye West
Yeah.
to name, and it's like they're using the exact same notes.
Yeah. Very
It
true.
is really magic.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else where you have such a small palette, but yet if you and I sat here and wrote a song, or if you wrote one and then I wrote one, they'd sound completely different.
Hmm. The only thing I can think of is using color, utilization of color,
Yeah.
and how you can translate that to different art forms. But that actually probably relates at a deeper level in terms of how art is expressed in
Mm.
the human being, like the vibration of
Uh,
color to the vibration of the notes, right? That's a deeper conversation, but you
do
know what
you
I'm getting
know?
at.
Do you know Kandinsky, the Russian artist?
No.
See, he was an abstract artist along the lines of, let's say, Juan Miro and Salvador Dali.
Okay.
So Kandinsky, I don't know if he was a peer of those guys, but it's the same abstract avant-garde thing. If you think of Salvador Dali, but a little bit more abstract,
Oh, let me look it up.
Kandinsky's really great. Now, Kandinsky was awesome. Um, Vasily Kandinsky, I believe it was, said at one point that at one point in his career he would do these great paintings. You see something there?
Yeah, I think I'm spelling it wrong.
Kandinsky. I think Kandinsky.
Uh-huh.
And he would say in his later paintings that every color could be related to a musical note.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he used to say, and I don't know, maybe he was just high on something, I don't know, but he used to say, you can play my paintings if you know the correct order.
Ah. Yeah, see, there's a term for that. Yeah, I'm showing a
Oh,
little bit
yeah,
here.
yeah, good idea.
Some of them are just him. Yeah, like stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So up on the top, you see those two, maybe I guess the second and yeah, there we go. That great one on the
Oops.
far side of your screen.
Oh, here's some
Yeah,
paintings actually.
yeah. See, that's great. That
Wow, I like
abstract
that.
stuff. So
Yeah.
his later stuff became much more abstract. So we have Odessa, we have his early things with the ships there. But if you scroll down
Yeah.
to the later things, you'll start to get much more abstract.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that was when he started to get into more of the this is musical.
Okay, I'm working my way down.
I know you are.
You got a lot.
Well, he's a huge, hugely famous artist. Um,
Wow, that was cool. I like that.
yeah, yeah. No, he's someone I really like. But you see, the beginning of the abstract is now happening. Um, you see, then this is where he became famous. Yeah, here we go. This is
Oh,
much more abstract. Yeah. And so he used to say all these would have colors. And as we, if you keep scrolling along, be my guest,
yeah. Yeah,
he'll
keep
get
going.
really abstract. Yeah, here we go. Even more so.
Hmm.
There we go. Now we're really getting to the very basic elemental nature of things. It's no longer real. We're now far from realism. Yeah, there we
Getting a
go.
little
Now,
more psychedelic.
yeah, I know. Just please put on the Who or some Jimi Hendrix. We'll be fine here. Yeah, and so it keeps going on this. You'll see, and he used to say, yeah, these are all. This is music. This
Yeah.
is more than this art. This is music.
Uh,
If you really scroll, I think we'll get into some even more
I
crazy
can go back.
stuff.
Hold on. Yeah, go down to his later years is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know how long he lived. I don't remember.
That one's cool. I don't want to stop at all. We'll see. Stop me if you see a good one.
Yes, yeah, yeah, there we go. We're starting to get more abstract here.
I can see it. Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you
yeah,
can
like
see
this
it.
one.
Yeah, there we go. That's like the 19 or the Oriental.
Oh, what's going on here?
Okay, thank you,
There we go.
Wikipedia. Yeah, see, here we go. We're really getting into this. And if you looked at this not as a painting, but as sheet music,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
that's what he said. So
Yeah.
everything is, this is a piece of sheet music. I don't know which note. Maybe that's a C chord and there's an F sharp minor and there's a major minor over there. I don't know. But that was his thing is this is music here.
Yeah. What do they call? I think the term I was looking for is the unified field theory.
Yeah, that's those I can't spell those words. Those are too big for me.
As in how it's all one force, right? It's all
Hmm.
Shakti. It's all just this one energy. And it
Mm.
separates itself either into visualization, sound, the way that we speak in terms of poetry. It's
Mhm.
all this one thing with different shapes, different personalities, you could say. It's all the Bhagavad Gita.
No.
It's all the song of the Lord, right? Just playing its different parts.
I used to work with this playwright in New York. His name is Lawrence Holder. He's famous for writing. He wrote all about African American culture. In New York, he's iconic, but no one really knows about New York. He um he wrote a play on Malcolm X. It's a two man production, and so there's Malcolm who's talking either on the phone or something. I forget now to Elijah Muhammad. Okay, so it's and Elijah's converting Malcolm. You know, we know that story. And that was a play. And Lawrence cast a young man into the role of Malcolm X who had never been on stage before in his life. And the young man um, was a fellow named Denzel Washington.
Mm.
And it's a play called When the Chickens Come Home to Roost. And it literally, I think it was in the New York Times. Denzel had never been on stage before playing Malcolm X. A few years later, he would do the movie. And my friend Lawrence actually wrote a Malcolm X movie, but the family said, no, we don't like your version. But
Oh,
that he's famous for making the career of of Denzel Washington. And I used to work with Lawrence. I directed a play of his, and we were going to direct some other plays, one on Bud Powell and the piano player Bud Powell and Thelonious Monk. We had a play about them we were going to do, and it didn't pan out, and a few others. But Lawrence is a saxophone player, and he doesn't perform; he just performs in his bedroom. But he used to tell me, he goes, "Yeah, you know, when I'm not playing saxophone, I'm still playing saxophone.
mm,
You know,
hmm.
everything I do is like." I'm always trying to find that saxophone solo, and he told me he was such an inspiration for me. He's telling me, you know, when I'm writing the character and I'm digging into this, he did a one man show on Charlie Parker, and he goes, yes, I'm trying to find his saxophone solo, not the Charlie Parker who we know on albums, not the saxophone player, but what was Charlie's solo? What was the saxophone solo just of his life?
Mm.
you
Hmm.
know, and everything he just I'm always playing. I'm always looking for that solo. What's the solo in the movement? And he would meet him and I would meet up with other people and we would talk about different projects. And he literally said to me once, we were going to work with this one woman who had written a play, and he goes, "Yeah, I don't like the solo she's playing. I don't like that solo. We're not going to do this project." I was
Mm.
like, wow, man, I'm going to kiss your feet. I idolize you, Lord. I'm like, wow, and I remember I was kind of writing a play at the time, and I threw it out. I was like, "There's no solo here. I ain't got
Mm.
nothing." I just went, "I'm done." I was
Yeah.
fine with that because I was like, it's not a solo worth hearing. You know?
Yeah. It's powerful stuff. Yeah. Music can be used as a metaphor, I feel, for everything, really. Everything I think we mentioned before
Hmm.
is a song in a way. It's a certain flow, you know? What's music all about? It's all about harmony.
Yeah.
Different parts that don't seem like they should work together, working in harmony through patterns, right? It's
Yep.
all the same
Yep.
notes.
Yep.
So I think the gist of this metaphor is being able to find harmony in the song of our lives, the dance of our
Um,
lives.
isn't the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't it have a subtitle like Song of the something?
Well, what does
Or is it,
Bhagavad Gita mean? It just means the song of the Lord, right?
yeah, yeah, Song of the Lord or something like, or some, yeah, translation like that.
Hmm.
And actually, if you go into Indian scripture, there's a whole group of poets. They're called the Alvars, Alvars, and they were poets who were also singing poets and music, and they would travel. I don't think there's like a bunch of them, and they would travel around and share scriptures in song form
Yeah,
and help spread the religion through. I
yeah.
mean,
That's how it was preserved.
I guess they're like the Christian rock band of their day.
Yeah,
you
right?
know? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what's cool about the Vedas too. I don't know
Yeah.
about all of it, but it's like it's a song.
Well,
It's
I know the Mahabharata used to be recited.
hmm.
So the earliest forms of the Mahabharata are actually do not include the Bhagavad Gita. They're some people I don't agree. I take the non-religious view. Some people say this is a history book and it came down just the way it is. But when people have looked at the history of the book, actually it predates the Bhagavad Gita. There was a story that would be told and it would be sung and it would be shared and it would often be twisted. Like the local king would be put into the Mahabharata and it would be like a
Oh
way of,
yeah.
oh, you're now part of history. And then eventually the story solidified into this very, very long version. And the Bhagavad Gita was put in, and other religious things were put in because the writing is different and there's no tie-in to the rest of the story. It's kind of interesting. So I don't see this as a historical text. I see it as a book that was formed over time.
Hmm.
But it actually, if you believe this story, and people have argued with me about this point, but I don't care. Um, they're like, "Oh, you're criticizing the word of the Lord." I'm like, "No, I'm not. It's something else."
Hmm.
But this is a story that was sung, and I
Yeah.
we don't have this in our culture anymore. We don't even have that whole concept of singing to preserve
No,
is gone,
it's
literally
gone.
gone. Yeah,
It's
I
gone.
mean,
I think it's because it was like it
I
served a utility. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like think about when you hear a radio jingle, it gets stuck in your
Mm-hmm.
head. I think it was sung because it was just a good way to remember it,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, there's also it's a poetic to sing it, but I think it was also just
There,
logically
but
the thing to do.
also music has an emotional component too.
Very true.
So you're not just remembering the words, you're remembering the emotional feeling
Yeah,
of
it's like
of this. Yeah.
imprinted into your soul through the song too. That's the thing. So
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
somehow you become part of the song. If you start singing it, like you become part of the transmission at least to the song. That's what's cool. And I think that's what is religion in a certain sense. It's
Yeah.
like you become part of the Dharma when you start to
Yeah.
speak the Dharma, when you start to sing along the Dharma. And that's the thing, is the song is still going on. We're still singing. Everyone thinks all these books were written a long time ago, thousands of years. All these sages and saints and holy
Mm.
people have come before us. That's them. They're holy, not me. Well, no, the show goes on. We're still playing a part here into the into the scripture that was written, and not necessarily adding on to those books, but we're writing our own story, right? This is like part two to all those stories that were written in the past, right here, right now. We're all writing it. We're all singing it.
I think actually it's a bit of a sidetrack here, but I've often said that that ongoing story is part of what, that sometimes you have a religion that may not be, it's like a cult thing,
Yeah.
like Charles Manson, for example. And what do? You see this teacher come out of nowhere, have this teaching, Jim Jones, whoever, and then their story ends. There's no more story after they vanish. There's no, or Mormonism or Scientology or some of the others, there's no more story being told here. Or Christian Science is another one. The ones who pray for healing, you don't go to doctors. They still follow every Sunday. The Christian Science Church reads the liturgy that Mary Baker Eddy wrote the year she died in 1910. And that is the same liturgy they will read until the end of time. They will not change it.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, they'll still be reading this liturgy from 1910, which is pretty out of date. It's frozen, and I often see that, and I go, "Oh yeah, you're not part of a bigger story here. You're not even trying to be a part of a bigger story." No. I'm a little worried about you. You know? Yeah, I'm like, because that's not actually normal. If you go to a we at my law firm, we just hired a new lawyer. We have a lawyer retiring, so we brought in a new guy to replace him, to do basically the same stuff. This is how a company works, right? You bring in a new employee, and you and I have probably been in the same thing. You come into a company, and your job is not to reinvent the company. Your job is to keep that company going.
Yeah.
You're part of the story. My law firm was founded in 1881. My job is just a small part of this history, is to keep that company going and growing and moving and dynamic. That is what my job is for as long as I'm at this company. That is why I was hired. If I wasn't hired to change, revolutionize, destroy. So these religious groups where their story ends, that's not how anything works here. That's really not how anything works. I know this is completely off topic, but you kind of said it, and it just made this idea come into my head.
Yeah.
Like, no, that society is about keeping the story going.
Yes. Yep.
And our families, what is having children? It's keeping the story going.
Yeah.
For those people who want you to spread the family name, I don't have kids, but my brother has 4 of them, so the family name's fine. But it's like, that's the natural thing, is to keep it going. When you stop it, you're stopping. When you stop it, you're stopping the concert before it's over.
Yeah.
You're being Axl Rose going, "I ain't going to finish the song. You guys suck." And he walks off stage.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, the fines from the union are horrible. You don't want to do that. But it's like, that's what you're doing. You're ending the concert prematurely, and then people riot, and then they get upset, and then it messes everything up.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's the difference between entropy and momentum. He who is not with me is against me. You're either with it or you're against it, man.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I know what team I'm on. I'm with it. You can keep the story going. You can be a part of the story. Or you just try to pave your own way. That's the Luciferian archetype. He tried to pave his own way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we haven't talked about Luciferian here.
Yeah, that's a lot. But that's the essence, is like all the, you're trying to create your own story. You're rebelling from the story of God.
So I got to go with you. Just mention Luciferian. If you don't mind, I got to mention Anton LaVey. Sure, many of your viewers know Anton LaVey. So I've read the Devil's Bible, whatever. I've read a bunch of his stuff.
Devil's Bible.
Oh, it was the Devil's. It's fine. I was really into Aleister Crowley, so I ended up reading some of Anton LaVey. Anyways, there's in one of his books, I think it's a book that was published right after he died. It's called Satan Speaks. It's a collection of essays. There's one essay, and I've always remembered this. It's like, that's one of the coolest things. He says, he lists what is, in his mind, whatever year he died, the most satanic music group out there. He just
Hmm.
lists, he goes, this is it. This band is like that. They are living the Luciferian life.
The Beatles.
Sorry, Sergeant Pepper, you're not right. No.
Hmm.
I'll give you another guess. Try again.
What year?
You'd have to look it up, but it's
Like
it's a
60s, 70s?
let's no band post 70s. I can't remember when he died. I'm just gonna look it up here. And LaVey, Anton LaVey, there he is. Died. Oh, he died in 1997. But it's not a band. It's not like Nirvana. So
Okay, so who is it?
yeah, the most satanic band ever. Are you sitting down? The Beach Boys.
Oh, why is that?
So, all the early hits, all the early albums by the Beach Boys were mostly written by Brian Wilson before he went crazy and then the other guys started doing stuff. Brian doesn't surf and was afraid of the water.
Hmm.
His brother on drums, I forget, Carl Wilson, I forget his name, he was the surfer. But Brian doesn't go near, never has been near he doesn't go near water. He doesn't surf. He doesn't do that. He created a band focused on surfing and music and living on the beach, which he didn't do. So according to Anton LaVey, how more Luciferian can you get but to create a whole world about something that isn't you?
A false world.
And that actually, it's like you went on your own path. I mean,
Yeah.
who's doing surf music? You went into your own path and you just followed this thing that nobody else was doing. When the Beach Boys came up, there really wasn't, maybe Dick Dale or some things, but we don't really have surf music like that. Created something so new that had nothing, that was completely not you.
Hmm.
So according to Anton, the Beach Boys are the most satanic band ever.
I get that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he may not be right, but the fact that he didn't live, and he used to say, he goes, it's not black metal bands. And when
Yeah.
he died in 97, black music, black metal was already a thing. So it's not those bands.
No, I get it.
It's not the ones that say we're from Satan. Because
Yeah.
if you say you're doing Satan, then you're following Satan.
Yeah.
But a Luciferian doesn't follow.
Mm.
They don't even lead. They take that middle path. They do
Mm.
their own thing. That's what being a Luciferian is. You're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
And how own can it be than the right surf music when you don't surf?
Yeah. Right. He didn't
Like,
follow his heart.
he didn't follow his heart. He didn't follow anyone. And he
Yeah.
made amazing music, which we all know,
Yeah. He sold his soul to the devil.
Yeah. And then he went bonkers probably because of it, but whatever. But it's like, I was like, wow, that's cool. Yeah, all the satanic bands are just following the leader. How
Yeah.
unoriginal is that to be a satanic band?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's very true. Yeah. I guess Satanism in its purest form is doing your own thing. Do what
It
thou
is
wilt.
basically do it that well. Is the rule of the law. Love is the law.
Yeah.
Love under will. Yeah, yeah. That's
Hmm.
that's it. I
Yeah.
was like, that's so cool. That's the one thing I get out. That's the one point I have on Satanism. The rest of it, I just don't really care about.
Yeah.
I'm just like, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
Yeah. It's better than falling into a dogma of a cult. That's
Yeah.
what I would say. Yeah. Do what thou wilt.
Yeah.
But love, I like that. Love is the law. You can't forget about
Love
that.
is the law. Yeah, love is the law. That's also what, Aleister Crowley, love is the law. Do what thou wilt, and every man and woman is a star.
Yeah.
The rest of what he said is drugged out gibberish.
Yeah. I've read some Aleister Crowley, and it's
I,
like, whoa, what is
I,
this?
I used to collect biographies about Aleister Crowley.
Hmm.
And so I would read these biographies about him, and I've read some of his stuff. And I was kind of really into him for many years, but I'm like, no, you're just a drug addict
Yeah.
who tried to become famous.
Yeah. Oh, we did.
Because, yeah, and it worked. I mean, the reputation that he was the most evil man on earth was started by him. He started it.
Yeah.
And supposedly he did that. He was the most evil man by sacrificing 365 virgins
Oh.
on an island off the coast of Italy where there wasn't anybody. And so how did you find all these virgins? And also, where are their bodies? You're just a liar. You're just trying to
Yeah.
become famous. I'm like, okay, but that makes you kind of interesting because he followed his
Interesting.
own. Yeah, because he followed his own thing. He wanted to become famous. He thought he was a great magician. He just was pretty tanked out half the time. He thought, and he followed what he thought was great.
Mm.
But the interesting thing about him is he wrote the Book of the Law, which he said came from God, but he didn't share it with anyone for like a decade because he goes, it's too much. I can't share it.
Hmm.
So if you're really after fame and fortune, you would probably release a book to the world that supposedly came down from an Egyptian god, but he didn't because it really wasn't about being famous. It was about doing something that was in him. And then he needed money, so he had to become famous because he was a broke junkie. But in the beginning, it really was about following what was inside of him and what made him unique.
Hmm.
And that always fascinated me. His writings don't, but he does.
Yeah.
And that goes back to everything else we've been talking about today. Is following that person inside of you that makes you truly unique. Interesting. I keep bringing up the examples of people who are unique, and they're all very controversial.
Yeah, I think there's
So
correlation there.
this may not be the path for everybody. You may want to stick with maybe like do the Jimi Hendrix thing or something, but but
There's
it's like,
correlation.
yeah, you kind of gotta be willing to give the finger to society, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. Give a finger to the world. A little bit. Not to
A
God,
little,
though.
man. No, but even if you think of someone like Thomas Aquinas or Saint John of the Cross or Saint Teresa Avila, saints who have had things happen, if you read about them, you know, they weren't necessarily making the Pope happy, you
Hmm.
know. Galileo, you know, many of these folks who they're not evil, they're good, decent people. Joan of Arc.
Yeah.
We forget the fact that they had, well, not for her, but for many others, we forget the fact that they weren't doing anything bad. They were living themselves. But if you're living yourself, you're kind of going against society.
Going against the
Um,
grain.
yeah. Socrates,
Yeah.
look what happened to him.
Jesus Christ. A
Yeah,
lot
Jesus,
of,
right. So you kind of, if you want to follow yourself, it's almost like you're going to have to be willing to accept that
yeah.
some people aren't going to like you at the end of the day, but oh well.
Oh, well, it's worth it.
Because the goal is not to follow society. The goal is to be
No.
yourself. And
Yeah.
look at what these people do. I mean, Joan of Arc died early, died young. Maybe you don't want to copy her so much, but
Mhm. But the point of the story is
yeah,
that they
yeah.
followed this duty, getting back to that. They
Hmm.
followed this duty, this purpose that transcends their life,
Yeah.
transcends their death. Something that
Yes.
they live for that is more than the world. And that is
Yes.
priceless, man.
And it's bigger than them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
priceless.
Yeah. And when they, like I
Right?
said, the two best parts of the Bhagavad Gita are chapter 1 and 2, where they say, follow. Hey, I tell you, that's the best part.
Mhm. I'll take you up on that. I'll
Hey?
reread
No, you don't have to reread it, but it's
it.
to follow your, and we have to, and we look at someone like Socrates and we're like, no one would have done what he did if that wasn't his purpose in life.
Yeah.
He lived in poverty, actually. A lot of people don't realize that. He had a wife and kids who literally lived in destitution,
Mm.
one step from homelessness. He was in the Greek political scene for a bit, but I think was kicked out or something for talking too much.
Mm.
He had to die, and he took it on himself, though. So you have to ask, how would someone do that if it's not their destiny?
Yeah.
Of course, the argument is there's like Hitler and stuff, and I guess they're following their destiny too. But as we said in the beginning of the show,
Yep.
God is mysterious.
Mystery. Yeah.
And ironically, we know, and I'm going to connect with something you said. We know Socrates is a great thinker, even if we don't read his books. We all know who he is, and Plato and Aristotle. We know the essence of them, and we think of Socrates as a great thinker, whether or not we've read. Well, he actually didn't read any books, so we've never read anything. We know he's good because we have someone like Adolf Hitler whom we can compare him to.
Yeah.
There's the bad and the good. So yeah, Hitler might have been following his destiny and it might have effed the world up to this day. But in a way, it's like, well, if we didn't have him, how would we know? that Socrates was so great, or how do we know Karl Marx versus this philosopher or this person versus? How do we know?
Mm,
So maybe this is God's mysterious plan: is that
yeah,
yes, we have these good people and these horrible people, but that is the black and white, the light and the dark, as you said earlier, that we need this. I don't know. I'm just riffing on the top. I'm just riffing here. We're just going with the saxophone
I feel it.
solo.
I
I have
feel it.
never said any of these things before. This is totally in the moment, Gary. I am totally riffing. Yes, that's the end of it. I'm going to leave the chorus to you, please. It is 12 bar blues.
I don't have anything else to say other than I feel that, man. The darkness is what holds the light. It's the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the zero and the one. I don't know how else
Mm-hmm.
to explain it, man, but it's a mystery, I guess is how we can conclude. It's a mystery, but I revere the mystery so much.
The
So much
mystery
so.
leaves the mysteries like the song you're trying to learn or the song you're trying to write. It always gives you something to go after.
To live for,
Yeah,
right?
I guess so. I
To
don't
live
know
for, to die for.
what's the other option.
Stagnancy, an early death, dying while you're living, right?
Or yeah, not even being alive in the first place,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's almost like the darkness is worth it
Hmm.
in a weird way. I don't know.
Well, without the darkness, would you be the person you are today?
No, no. I wouldn't know how to be the person I am today.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
have to go through those stupid things and do that bad shit and look back in your life and go, really? That's what I did?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all for a greater purpose, man.
it really is. And now we're old men. We can say that.
I'm not that old.
I don't know how old you are, but
I'm bald, but I'm only 30.
yeah, but you're not 20.
True, not 20 anymore. I was
Uh,
last year. I was in my 20s last year, but not anymore. So
yeah, but
yeah,
you're
30 is
but you
old.
but at 30, and here I've got 17 years on you, but 30 though, you can look at a 20-year-old and go, "Wow, you're
Yeah.
young,"
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Oh
I see that now.
yeah.
I see people, that's a thing for 30-year-olds is like seeing adults that are younger than you. Because it used to be like, oh, I'm an adult, but I'm still young.
Oh
But I
yeah.
see like people that are grown up that are 10 years younger than me. I'm like, oh shit,
Now
I am
see,
getting old.
you're
That's when
not
you
in
start to get old.
you're not in school, or well, I mean, you might be in school, I don't know, but the school age right after high school.
Yeah.
So I don't see you as a young person. Yes, you're 30, it doesn't matter. Okay, my coworker's actually younger than you, and we have a great time together. So I don't see the difference so much. But if you were still in college, it just like you'd be a worlds away.
Yeah, I feel that.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, it's
20 to
just like,
30 is a big difference.
and I
Yeah.
went through. I don't know about you. It may take years before you can even answer this question, but I went through so many things between like yeah, 20, 21 to 30. Like those were such changing times. And
Oh
there's so many
yeah.
things I would do differently.
Yeah.
But now I look back and I'm going, yes, I would have done a lot of stuff differently.
Yeah.
Oh God. But had I not done that,
Exactly. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
And
had
that's
I
what you
not,
said. Would you be here if it wasn't for the darkness? I wouldn't know
yeah,
how to
no,
be. So
I
yeah,
wouldn't.
you gotta be thankful for it in a way.
There's things I wish I had tapped into, but had I tapped into that, I don't even know where my life would be. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
here. And
It's all part of the plan.
I've got a girlfriend of 9.5 years. I've got a little house. We've got two cats. We've got a car. We both have jobs. I'm happy. Would I be here had I done something?
hmm Would you be here in this
I don't
pod,
know. I
in
know I
this
wouldn't be.
conversation?
Would I be? I probably wouldn't be. No, I
Yeah.
don't think I would be at all.
Yeah, man. It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. Do you work? May I ask? Do you have a job outside YouTube?
I do, but it's well, I do
You don't have to
DoorDash.
give. You don't have to give particulars. I'm not. I'm just curious. You have a job you go to, right?
Yeah.
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 And
Have you had it for a long time?
no, I used to work in the cannabis field. That's
Oh,
where
okay.
I used to do, and then I left that because it's a little bit what's the
That's
word?
a field collapsing, actually.
Yeah,
In
I can
some,
see that.
yeah,
It's
Oregon closed their biggest, or is it Washington State closed one of the biggest cannabis farms in America? There's one in California. Here in Maine, it's collapsing
yeah,
because we have all
it's
the Chinese.
oversaturated.
Yeah, it's oversaturated. We've legalized it now. And then one of my lawyers went off and became like one of the first lobbyists in the state for cannabis. We have so many places now, and the Chinese are doing their illegal farming that's
Yeah,
killing
it's
it.
not right.
Yeah.
It's industrialized, corporatized cannabis. This is a whole
Oh,
topic, a different
oh
topic.
no,
This
but
is a
that's
big
fine.
topic.
Yeah.
Corporatized cannabis is
Oh
very
yeah.
unethical.
Oh.
It's not what you think it is. I was on the inside for probably 3 years and I saw a
Mm,
lot, worked at 3 different dispensaries. I was
mm,
involved in the growing process. I grew a lot
mm.
of marijuana and I realized how they do it is not honoring the plant. It's not honoring the
Yeah.
patients and it's not honoring just the idea of cannabis and what, because I do believe it is a medicine.
Oh,
Cannabis
it's one of the,
medicine.
it's an amazing medicine. I
Yeah.
highly encourage people to do what you need to do. It's great stuff.
Yeah. But
Yeah. I
medical
have,
marijuana, as it's dubbed, medical, it's not what it's made out
no,
to
I
be
know.
unless you see behind the scenes.
I'm going to bring that into where we've been going in our
Hmm.
conversation. So, we talk about all these distractions in society and and you go with the flow or you don't. You literally just said this industrialized cannabis complex it's not, you said it's not respectful to the plant.
Yeah.
That is literally what we've been talking about. If you take the plant and just replace it with the word, it's not respectful for the person. That plant, it's like you see what happens when the plant isn't given the respect
Yeah.
and honor that this needs. It's destroyed.
Bad energy.
That's us, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
We're all marijuana plants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not taking care of ourselves in the
No,
right
it's
way.
and then you see where it ends up. It's just horrible.
Yeah, very Tomasic, as you could say.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a wonderful representation of where we are,
Mm, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Look, and I grew up in Seattle. We got good marijuana out there, and I have smoked plenty in my time. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I
That's the
have
thing is
smoked
what they're
plenty.
doing is this is a whole conversation. I don't want to go too much into it, but what they're
Mm,
doing is
that's why I pulled it back.
yeah, I'll just say
Mm,
a little bit. What they're doing is growing it just for the most amount of THC possible in the
yeah,
marijuana plant. And that
yeah,
actually is what that does is in order to do that is you stress out the plant. You're literally causing stress for them to excrete the what is that? I don't know what
I
the
yeah,
oil,
yeah,
which elicits the most amount of THC molecules. So you're just creating this environment. It's kind of like factory farming for plants.
yes,
It's
yes,
just
yes.
it's not right, man. You can feel it.
That's society. What does society do to all of us? It squeezes us, shuts our souls down, shuts our
Yeah,
curiosity, shuts our education down. And that's what you are literally describing is the whole medical marijuana. Marijuana is a metaphor for the world,
very
right?
mechanistic, like a machine, like a conveyor
Yeah.
belt lifestyle, right? You're
That's
part of the machine.
yeah. And look what the end result is. It's not the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Hmm.
I didn't know you did this. I have no idea, but you literally just gave a perfect metaphor for society.
Yeah,
And what
man.
you're saying is that the good stuff, the good marijuana, is the stuff that doesn't get trapped in this process.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true. It's the organic stuff.
Yeah. And then we can keep going on this metaphor. This is actually an awesome metaphor. These stores that are open now, let's say, God, we have so many in this town. My law firm has probably opened about 12 marijuana places in town because it's just like once it went legal in Maine, it was like boom,
Oh yeah.
everyone wanted to do it. It's like three on every block here.
Maine's
So, but
huge for marijuana, low key.
but I don't think they're doing as well as they are. But it's cheaper to stay in business than to kill the rent
Mm,
because it's oversaturated. And there's
yep.
because if you don't know if you don't know what your a scene is, then you don't know how many people are really going to buy it and how many really
Yeah.
take it. And then suddenly you have to investigate and give it 10 years or something.
Hmm.
But if you have one store that's selling the good stuff, that's treated well, and then you have another store that's doing the cheap Chinese shit, well, they both got to pay rent. They both have things to do.
Yeah.
And there's this struggle like, well, I have the good stuff. Mine is pure. It's my brother who runs the farm and it's all organic. And you can do tours on a donkey through the farm and whatever. It's awesome. And it's like we have campfire night and it's so, but I got to pay rent and I got to struggle. And
Yeah.
I don't know how to bring business in because everyone's going next door because it's $5 cheaper per pound.
Yeah.
What do I do? That's life. That's the struggle. And that's the whole
Yeah.
spiritual discussion that we've been having is, yes, I've achieved enlightenment or nirvana, or I have this realization, but oh shit, I still gotta, like Buddha, I became realized, but I still gotta teach all these fools.
Yep.
That's it. You've literally created, I think you've literally created the perfect example of the religious and the spiritual life and society as a whole. You literally did. I had no idea I was walking into this, but you have
Me
literally
either.
done the best metaphor. This is the best, probably one of the best metaphors I've heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Is the medical, is the marijuana world.
Uh-huh. It's the good stuff
And
or the fake
you're
stuff.
gonna be thinking about this later, going, "Dang, that was really good."
Yeah, it's
And
already
you'll be
blowing my
like,
mind.
"I'm glad I didn't work for an insurance company."
Right? Wouldn't be able to have this conversation.
I was like, "Well, that's so good on my part."
Very true, man. It's the
Well,
good
think
stuff
about
or the fake stuff.
it.
Yeah. And when we choose the good stuff, we choose the organic route.
Mhm.
It may not yield the most fruits, as in
Yeah,
terms of materialism. That's the thing.
it's gonna be harder.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you're going against the grain, but you're actually not.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
because and there'll be those people who find your dispensary and go, "Yeah, no, you really do have the good stuff here." And I tell all my friends to come to your dispensary, and I know it's like $10 cheaper down the block, but my money is well spent here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you
Hmm.
get people, you talked earlier about people connecting on your show and who doesn't, whatever. It's the same thing. You're just doing it and you're doing your thing, and like people will come.
Yeah.
And you're honest to yourself, and you're just like, I got the good
Mm.
shit, I got the good marijuana, and it's whatever. And I'm like, and at the end of the day, if you when you close your business, you will be able to sit with yourself and go, okay, maybe I didn't become the millionaire, or I didn't do this, but I was honest to myself.
Yep. Hmm.
And that matters so much.
Hmm.
And
Amen.
I'm honest to myself. I was honest to the people I reached out to. I didn't bullshit anybody. I didn't lie to anybody. I didn't try to be anything I wasn't other than honest to myself. And I encouraged it. What more could you have asked for? You will be a successful marijuana dispensary businessman, but the
Amen.
person on the block is going to be like, well, we're closing the dispensary. I'm still not a millionaire. So what other business can I invest in? Because I don't care about it. I just need to make more money. And
Yeah.
that's what they're going to be doing. They're going to be in the rat race while you're sitting there going, I'm
Yeah.
happy.
The di
I'm really happy.
yeah. The difference is, and hey, honestly, man, I think we should start to wrap this up because this is
Oh
pretty
yeah.
long, and my butt's starting to hurt from
Oh
sitting so
okay.
long.
I
But
do
but
I
I
do
do have
long.
one last point.
Okay.
The difference is between the person trying to make all the money and the go, go, go attitude in the cannabis field or whatever else the pursuit is in life. If that's your attitude, or
Mm,
you take the perspective of living true to yourself, most
mm,
likely the other person with the go, go, go materialistic attitude, that perspective on life is probably suffering more. If you stay true to yourself, there's most likely going to be a lot less suffering. You might not have as much money, right?
mm.
The weed may be a little bit more expensive in terms of the metaphor, but you will just be more at peace. And I think that's what this whole path is all about, right? It's
Yeah, I think,
finding
yeah,
peace.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I haven't been paying attention to the time. I'm just used to sitting here and doing really long shows, but yeah, we probably should wrap it up. And that's probably a good place to end it. I'm sorry if I've sucked your
Yeah.
day away. I apologize, but it's
Oh,
been a
it's
great
cool.
talk and we've had a good time.
This
Um,
is, yeah.
can I do one thing if you'll give
Yeah.
me 1 second?
Yeah.
Oh, all
This is unlike any kind of talk I've had. That's for sure.
right. Well,
We don't usually go 3 hours.
I'm gonna show you something.
Please. Yeah. Take your time too. I'm chilling. I'm just
Nope,
saying.
nope. Hang on. I'm gonna let one of my kitties say hello.
We got a guest. All right.
This is Tobias. He doesn't like to
Bias.
be picked up. He's not very happy right now. And he has a sister, Fiona. She was meowing a little earlier. So I just wanted to do a
Hello,
little,
Tobias.
say
You're the guest
hi.
teacher.
There you go.
So chill.
He's an old cat. They're
Oh
good
yeah.
brother and sister. They're our babies.
I love cats. Cats are
So
spiritual. They're
yeah,
very spiritual.
there
They're
you go,
tuned in.
buddy. Oh, he's not happy right now. Anyways, so we'll give him some screen time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate
So you
that.
know what? That's probably a good place to end.
I think so.
It's been a pleasure.
For sure. Thank you for coming on here, man. Seriously, this was an awesome talk. We went to some I don't even know where we went, to be honest. It's hard to even summarize.
No, we went all over.
We went all over, but I think where we went was valuable. It was valuable to me. I feel good. And yeah, this was an awesome talk, man. Thank you for coming on here. Keep
No,
doing your thing.
no. Yeah, my pleasure. I'll keep an eye out for you. And yeah, all right.
That's it. Peace and love to you, and peace and
Peace and
love to
love.
anybody that listened this long. If you listen this long, you're a real one. Seriously.
Anyways, we're gonna say goodbye. Thank you, Gary, for your time.
Bye.
Peace out, man. Bye.